Welcome back to another FPL deadline stream, this time at a Blank Gameweek 34. Another chip is active for the third consecutive week. The wildcard was deployed back in Gameweek 32, the bench boost in 33, which resulted in 127 points. If only I could get something similar this week, but it could be a low-scoring affair. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. Do you think we're going to get more points than expected? Maybe if you've got 2 or 3 Tottenham players. I've currently got one of them in my starting 11 in Bedro Borro, but there are a few tweaks that could be made. I've gone for a slightly different structure here, which I discussed in my team selection video yesterday, with a 3-4-3, which includes Thiago, Watkins, and Bowen up front, and both of those could definitely be considered for the captaincy, but Bruno Fernandes takes the armband, and Salah is the vice right now. I actually free-hitted, well, everyone did, right? Unless you forgot to do so in the first half of the season, and I had Salah, who didn't even feature whatsoever, so Danzo came on and produced pretty much nothing. So we'll see what happens this time round, but I've got 2 Arsenal players here in Raya and Gabriel. Dalman is basically just the third option as a budget choice. I've also got Mukiele and Alderete. Actually, well, I would have gone for Alderete. He's actually available right now, but because of my limited funds, I've actually settled for Renildo Mandava at 3.8 million. 2 Liverpool players here in Szoboszlai and Salah. I've also got 2 United options technically, with Heaven on the bench, and Bruno Fernandes is the main captaincy contender, and Igor Thiago will face him, of course, at Old Trafford on Monday night. How many games have United played this season on Monday? I mean, it might be a record at this point. I've gone for Woodman as my backup goalkeeper. This could also be Kinski, which is probably a bit safer, but if Alisson doesn't return in time, then Woodman will start against Crystal Palace at home, but that could be changed very quickly anyway, and that's not really going to be the main concern for me. Another goalkeeper I'm looking at is Robin Roths, and then afterwards I could maybe make a few adjustments elsewhere, possibly include William Saliba in that defensive line, Virgil van Dijk, but I'm still quite wary about having too many Liverpool players, and technically I do have a triple up, of course, facing Crystal Palace at home, but all of this will be covered over the next few hours because we have plenty of time now until that Blank Gameweek 34 deadline. Let's also be sure to hit the Super Chat goal, which is going to be set very soon, and also, well, I'm going to be going for a lot of different graphics, predicted lineups and stuff like that, which is going to put you in a very good position for every single deadline, really. So if you catch up to these streams, you're going to be in a great position to win your mini leagues and rise up the rankings. So I'm going to go straight into your comments first and foremost, and afterwards I'll delve into all the stats and data if needed. But let's start off with Ahmed, who is the first to comment. Hi Dylan, my free hit team is Raya, Pedro Porro, Gabriel, Van Dijk, Cunha, Wilson, Bruno Fernandes, Xavi Simons, Bowen, Thiago, Watkins. Liking the look of it, and that's another player I'm considering for my own squad, Xavi Simons, who I talked about in yesterday's team selection, but ultimately hasn't been very consistent this season. It's just really that big haul against Brighton and a plum fixture against Wolves away next. So Pickford on the bench with Dewsbury Hall, Saliba and Mukiele. You don't need to have that much in terms of your bench. I think one good option is fine. And if you are maybe looking at a upgrade in your starting 11, well, a very simple way to fund that move is to downgrade some players on your bench, particularly Saliba or Pickford. I know Mukiele and Dewsbury Hall aren't that expensive anyway, so that's fine, but I would just be quite mindful about that. In terms of who to captain, Bruno Fernandes is currently my preference. You've got no Salah, so that's why you have a bit more squad depth, if you will, but yeah, I'm quite keen on Salah this week, considering his recent form, and I think he could do fairly well against Crystal Palace, who haven't been too shabby themselves, to be fair, but that's one possible move I would make, to bring in Salah, but that requires some movement elsewhere, and maybe even a switch to a front 2 with a budget forward as your third option. But ultimately, I do like the front 3 you've gone for. I've currently got the same myself, so just a few things maybe on the bench to take some money out, especially if you really want Mohamed Salah or another player of that ilk. But ultimately, the defensive line is looking very strong. That's probably the best you can build for Gameweek 34 on paper. And Arsenal are actually not top now of the clean sheet odds, which I talked about in my recent videos, like the free hit squad. So I'll show you the updated version and who is actually number 1 now this week. Sam says, hi Dylan, what do you think about Nico Williams and Dallo this game week? Not particularly a big fan of either, especially Dallo. Nico Williams might be more enticing considering his recent form. 33 points over the past 4 game weeks, and Sunderland and Nottingham Forest are both in the top 6 for the clean sheet odds. In fact, Forest are now I think 5th. No, they're 4th in the clean sheet odds. You're going to see that very soon, just ahead of Sunderland. And I think if I had to pick between those two, it's going to be Nico Williams for me. Why is everyone choosing Borro despite his goal in the last game? Is he even nailed? Didn't watch the game, but does he have a new role similar to O'Reilly or something? I wouldn't expect O'Reilly level of returns, but we know what Borro can do if he gets any goal contributions or a clean sheet, which is probably very unlikely. But Spurs are actually 3rd in those odds, which I'm going to show you later. And I think with Borro, it's not really a new role for him, but we all know that as a right back or right wing back, he can produce plenty of quality there with the assists from open play. He's also on set pieces in the absence of Maddison, who is technically back in the squad, so we could see him get some more minutes and take some set pieces off Borro. But yeah, we all know what he can produce, and he's worth the extra millions over Van der Ven, also Danso. But ultimately, a lot of people will struggle for funds, and that's where Danso could be your 4th or 5th defender there. And I get your reservations about Tottenham defenders. I'm not necessarily that sold on having 2 or 3 Tottenham players in my team, but there is a plum fixture against Wolves away, who are already relegated. So you can look at it one of 2 ways. They have nothing to lose, so they'll just go for it. And ultimately, you can't rely on Tottenham, especially defensively this season. But I think the reason why Borro is maybe attracting a lot of interest is pretty much a combination of the factors I just mentioned, with the form, well, at least that goal he produced against Brighton, the fixture, of course, against Wolves, and a combination of factors with the bonus points potential and the high ceiling that you're not really going to get from many defenders this week except Gabriel and possibly Van Dijk. Welcome, Harrison James. Big up, Dylan. Hope you're well. Likewise. So another free hit team in the building. Roves, Gabriel, Mukiele, Borro, Bruno Captain, Salah, Rice, Xavi Simons, Indai, Bowen, Watkins, with Raya, Solanke, Ballard, Heaven on the bench. Yeah, once again, you don't need to have too much money in your squad in terms of having Raya as your backup goalkeeper. But ultimately, if that's not really impacting your other moves, it's fine. It's not going to be a big deal. Solanke's interesting, and beyond the front three I have, he'd be probably next in line, maybe in the top 5 overall, to definitely have a consideration and say on the free hit this week. So I'm not really against that. I'd consider starting Solanke over Rice, to be honest, because I haven't really seen much from Rice recently. He did score against Newcastle last season at the Emirates, a 1-0 win for the Gunners, but they might need more than that, especially with this title race, if it continues, going to pretty much a shootout on who has the bigger goal difference. But yeah, I do like your setup. I think double Sunderland defence is a little bit... Look, I've technically got it myself, but I've got one on my bench and the other one starting. So I'd be a bit careful about that one, but ultimately there aren't many teams you can really guarantee or have confidence that they'll keep a clean sheet. Arsenal are probably the most likely on paper, but they actually went down to 2nd in the clean sheet odds as well, which you're going to see later. So yeah, interesting picks in there. I like it for the most part. There isn't anyone that screams to me like a poor pick in general, even that double up in the Sunderland defence, but I think your captaincy pick is right. He is the most reliable option when it comes to that, and I do like the Salah option as well. I don't think Salah will be benched, to be honest. Welcome, Maverick. Good to see you. Easy says triple-digit points. Yeah, I think not everyone, but a lot of people would have scored 100+ points on the free hit, maybe with the bench boost as well, or in certain cases the triple captaincy, which worked fairly well on those that went for Erling Haaland. Not Antoine Semenyo, though. This Gameweek free hit could make differential and rank overall depending on who each FPL managers pick. You can say that about any given game week, to be fair, but this will be a very popular time to use the free hit, that's for sure. Man City are finished. If only. Says Roves, Van Dijk, Borro, Gabriel, Gibbs White, Salah, Bruno, Simmons, Bowen, Thiago, Watkins, with Kinski, Mavropanos, Keane, Miley on the bench. Looks decent to me. And that's another Roves option there in goal, so that works fairly well. You do have Morgan Gibbs White though, so there is a clash in your starting 11, which isn't particularly ideal, but beyond that, I think it's looking very solid. That's the only concern I would probably sort of raise to you. But yeah, Xavi Simons, for example, is definitely under consideration for me. Not because he's a great FPL asset, but because he's got the fixture and he showed something against Brighton with 2 goal contributions as well. But looking good. Andrew Barton says, question for you, Dylan. I'm on a free hit. I want to start Cunha and away he might not start. I have Mukiele as first sub. Shall I just go for it? Yeah, I do like Cunha. He was talked about a lot in the early videos throughout the week, but he's not currently yellow flagged in FPL, but a few predicted lineups do have him on the bench. So we could see Ahmad Mbumo, Fernandes and Sesko as the front four. That's a possibility. He is in my predicted lineup, and it's actually Mbumo who's yellow flagged at the moment, but I think he'll start against his former club, Brentford. I don't mind the Cunha option, but as long as you got that first solid choice, like a Mukiele, you should be fine. Yeah, thank you. The intro music is by my cousin. Yeah, different songs as well. I like to spice them up a little bit, but yeah, hopefully a few new songs along the way as well. Tati Supremacy. Well, Castellanos has better underlying stats than Jared Bowen, especially over the last 5 game weeks, but that isn't a bad option. Definitely a differential for you if you're looking to go in that sort of direction. And actually, that does remind me that from the other side of that match, I don't think Beto will start. So if possible, I will tweak that. So when I show you the predicted lineups, it is a fair reflection on who will likely start. So I think it'll be Tiano Barry leading the line for the Toffees, and Tati Castellanos will certainly do so for West Ham. So let's get this sorted. Let's put Barry in there. And then very shortly, I'll be going to the stats and the predicted lineups, and that's going to also answer a lot of questions as well. Okay. Let's see. Okay, that should be sorted then. And I'll have that all ready for you. I'll just go for a few questions first and then go to the next one. Good luck, guys. I'll see you all at the midweek. I give up on FPL. Well, if you're not enjoying it, then that's fair enough. But I wouldn't encourage anyone to give up even when this game is just challenging your sort of will and self-belief. But yeah, there you go. Dealing with a pre-stream banger. I'd like to take credit for it, but like I said, it's my cousin who does that. Alderete or Murillo on the free hit? Alderete for me. I've gone for 1-1 as my scoreline prediction, but a slight preference for Sunderland from my perspective. What's your update prediction for top 5 and bottom 3? Arsenal, Man City, Aston Villa, Liverpool, and... yeah, not Chelsea. Not at the moment. So I'd probably say that's the toughest one. I'm not really that fussed about the top 5 race. Oh yeah, Man United. I forgot about them. Yeah, United will definitely get in there. Well done to them. Yeah, Man United. As for bottom 3, obviously Wolves and Burnley confirmed. The third one, I think Leeds are safe. It's between West Ham and Tottenham. I think one of the London clubs will go. I'm going to say Tottenham. Interesting one. Yeah, the third one is difficult for me. Yeah, I'm going to say West Ham. So Tottenham to stay up. Hey, mate, would you go for Wilson or Xavi Simons? I think Wilson's a safer pick in general. With Xavi Simons, it's a bit of an unproven entity in the Premier League. Also, Watkins or Isak? Definitely Watkins. I have no hesitation about that one. There's definitely a debate with the other one this week anyway, but I'd go for Watkins. Spurs' last win against Wolves was in 2022. Yeah, but football's a funny game. I've gone for a narrow Tottenham win, but yeah, they've been very funny. No Premier League wins in this calendar year, which is crazy. Yeah, Wilson's a good option. I'm considering him, maybe over Rodgers. So that's one of the key changes I've made from my team selection video yesterday. So I've got 2 Aston Villa attackers. I've also got 2 Liverpool midfielders here. And a double up in the Arsenal defence. There might be some double and triple ups overall, but obviously some of them are on my bench, like Heaven, Renildo Mandava, Woodman, and Dalman, of course. But yeah, I think with the midfield, there might be 2 or 3 standouts, but I think with the rest, it's quite open-minded and open-ended. Pick Spurs players could be a trap. There's a lot of pressure on them, and Wolves will try to win to drag Spurs with them to the Championship. Well, Wolves have nothing to lose, essentially. So, yeah, I don't think they'll necessarily want Tottenham to go down, but they'll just try to win the game. Ultimately, I just don't. It's a very tough game to call, as you say. There's a team with no pressure now versus a team that has all the pressure on them, especially being a Big Six club who are, well, just having a horrid season in general. So, yeah, it's going to be a difficult one for Spurs. If they do win, I think it'll be by the odd goal. Hi, mate. I'm looking for an Arsenal attacking free-hit punt. Difficult for me to really back anyone from Arsenal at the moment offensively. They're struggling to score goals, but probably Eze. I think he's the most likely. With Martinelli and Trossard, there's always a bit of a concern of who's going to start. Trossard was very impressive in the first half of the season, but he has tailed off massively. Saka and Calafiori will be in the squad, so, I mean, Saka could be a decent punt, but ultimately his minutes will be managed, and he might even be a bench player here for Gameweek 34 tomorrow. So, Victor Gyökeres, I don't think starts. It's going to be Havertz, so probably Eze for me. I'm at 2k rank with triple captain left. Yeah, all the best of luck with that one. Triple captain, yeah, my plan is to use it in 36 or whenever Man City double, but that's likely going to be the case. Cunha might not play, don't think he's trained. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong about that, and in that case, it'd probably be Amad Diallo starting ahead of him. So that could be a change in that United predicted lineup. Munoz or Cash to start? I'd go for Cash. Slightly better chance of a clean sheet. Is it worth Chow to Borro with a free transfer? I have no wildcard or free hit. Yeah, I don't really mind Borro as a one-week punt, but beyond that, I just don't want any Tottenham defenders, and even across the board, it's difficult to really advocate for any of their options, even in the midfield or forward line. But yeah, I think in this case, I probably would do it. But also bear in mind, if you don't have Gabriel, for example, you'd want him back for the Gameweek 35 period, and even this week, he might be fairly decent. No wildcard or free, it makes it difficult, of course. This is the toughest period to navigate that sort of switch from 33 to 34. So, yeah, let me know what your situations look like there, Carl. Oh, Carrie, I should say. Kane, we'll talk about him in UCL Fantasy, of course, but yeah, he's going to be one of the standout captains, of course. Dylan Best, Gordon replacement. I'm not sure what your budget is and which players you've got, but I think this week you're looking at one of Rodgers, possibly Wilson. I still like Declan Rice, but probably less than the other two. Order these three. Says Jam Run. It's going to be Wilson first. I'd go for Xavi Simons second and then Dye third, but that's purely for Blank Gameweek 34. That person who scored 175 points on a bench boost. Yeah, I'm not sure what the context is, if he took any hits, but that's an incredible score, of course. Welcome, Restolen. MK Dave says, hoping for Diarra. So thoughts on if you think the Villa-Fulham game will be a bit of a dead rubber, or both teams going for it? Well, Aston Villa can take one step closer to securing, well, Champions League football, and then focusing all their eggs on the Europa League basket. So I still think they'll go quite strong. With Fulham, it's also a question of no pressure as well. They're kind of used to that sort of mid-table finish, if you will, but they're not that many points off European spots. So I wouldn't say it's a dead rubber game. I think there is still something to play for both squads at the moment. What do you think of Sarr as a pick? It's just the fact he was benched in 2 consecutive games worries me. Now, he did score against Fiorentina in the Conference League, but yeah, I think Sarr's a bit of an interesting one. I had him as well when he faced Aston Villa, another club he loves playing against, so I get that logic. I'm not completely against it, but definitely long-term, I'm a bit hesitant about buying him, even with Palace likely doubling in 36. But we could see Bournemouth doubling instead of Crystal Palace. That could be the sort of slight tweak to proceedings, but Man City are obviously the ones guaranteed a double at this stage. Big Sam 3152 says, help me, my team, Gabriel, Michele, Salah, Bruno, Watkins, Thiago, Bowen, Bench, Kinski, Dalman, Achimpong, Rose, Van Dijk, Szoboszlai, Ulraya, Pedro, Xavi Simons, and Dye. Both trios are fairly decent. I think if I had to pick one, it's going to be Rose, Van Dijk, and Szoboszlai, but very close one, to be fair. I think most people would say number 2. Big question I have is in Dye, Wilson or Xavi Simons? Probably Wilson. In my Campsy list, he is the one who features in the top 10. Had a triple Bournemouth bench boost with Petrovic, Jimenez and Scott, which only got 9 points. Yeah, I said this after the Arsenal game. I don't like Scott as an FPL asset. Now, he could end up doing well in future game weeks and I look like a fool, but I just don't really think he's a great option. The underlying stats suggest that, and also he's a good player, but he's not really someone who gets goals or assists frequently, and even with Defcon, you can find better value in the midfield. So, Yeah, disappointing for you there. I went for Hill and Senesi, and ultimately I wish I had Strauch over one of Cucurella or even Senesi, to be fair, but yeah, it is what it is. You can't always have the perfect bench boost unless you got 175 points, but yeah, my bench boost technically got 22 points, and with Joao Pedro not playing at all, technically 17 points, I think it was. I mean, I'll take that. I think anything 15 plus points is going to be a success. I think with 9, it's a bit frustrating and disappointing because it's a double game week, but it is what it is, right? Hey, Dylan, I have Richarlison. Should I bench him or risk to start? I don't think he starts personally, so he'll get minutes off the bench, but even that isn't a complete guarantee. So, yeah, I'd probably sell him if possible. Choose one, Wilson and Dyche, Xavi Simons, Rogers, Szoboszlai. I'm going to say Rogers. I wanted Watkins. I'm free hitting next week, so didn't want my focus to be removing Villa and taking hits. I really like Watkins for the Tottenham and Burnley games coming up, more so than Fulham, but he has a good record as well against Fulham, both home and away. So, yeah, I'm quite happy to have Watkins, but that's famous last words. I have a terrible history with this guy. If you know, you know. Gakpo or Wilson? Wilson for me. Is triple Arsenal defense too much? I'd say so. Now, it's a way of gaining on the rest of the pack because a lot of people will have 1 or 2 Arsenal defenders. So if they were to keep a clean sheet, that would be a way of distinguishing yourself, I can't speak right now, from the rest of the pack. So yeah, I think triple Arsenal defense, it has its merits, but we're not seeing the same Arsenal side from October where they didn't concede a single goal across all competitions. It's a different story right now. So I'm going for the double up at the moment, and that's probably the maximum I'm going to do. I think a triple up is a bit excessive when they're about to face Newcastle, who are out of form, but Bruno Guimaraes is back, and he makes a massive difference. I'm going Borro captain. All the best there. I'm not going to recommend that, but hopefully it pays off for you. Gyökeres or Solanke for a 1-week punt? Probably Solanke. I don't think Gyökeres starts. It's definitely not a guarantee. Dango or Szoboszlai for double Gemic 36 for Sarr? I'd rather keep Szoboszlai and sell Dango. Yeah, Casemiro's not bad, actually. I mentioned him in my team selection video yesterday, and people might think I'm joking, but he's one of the highest scoring midfielders in the game. He's getting 5 to 6 points consistently because of DEFCON, so he might even be in my final squad over Szoboszlai, for example, and that allows me to have a better bench slightly or make an improvement or two in the starting 11, which is most important. Henry Stemmer says, hi Dylan, play 2 of Keane, Chow and Mbeumo. I would play Mbeumo and Keane. Yeah, Branthwaite's out for the rest of the season, so Keane will start. Mbeumo's yellow flag, but I think he'll be in the lineup. What do you think of transferring in Lefebvre? Not sure about transferring him in. I think with Sunderland, for example, you're looking at their defenders or Rovs in goal. That's probably the main appeal there. But Lefebvre's not bad as a budget option, but you've also got Dewsbury Hall for a little bit more. I think considering Everton's fixtures as well and Dewsbury Hall's consistency, I'd rather go for him instead. And that's just one example. Start Mavropanos over Pedro Porro? Not for me. Lulian says, having 10 players currently, would you sell Joao Pedro for Beto? Beto's injured. He's not going to play. That was confirmed by David Moyes today. Or another cheap striker this week. I need funds to buy Haaland for the double. In terms of budget forwards, it's a bit difficult because I think a lot of the most appealing options this week will be 7 to 9 million, like Watkins, Solanke, Bowen. Maybe Tati Castellanos from West Ham. I think that'd be a shout for you. Newcastle form in a couple of matches is bad. Yes, but they're facing Arsenal, so anything's possible. Who would I consider from Newcastle? Probably Chow, but I wouldn't buy him in this week. And yeah, it's kind of an awkward one with Newcastle. Harvey Barnes could be decent. I think he'll start against the Gunners, but not much confidence in general. I mean, for those looking for a budget striker, maybe Osula, who should start again. Is Gabriel a must-have? No, not a must-have, but one of my favourite defenders still. Would you consider Gibbs White, Dylan? Yes. Good day to you as well. Gibbs White is definitely a consideration. He's in my top 10 for the captaincy, and that list hasn't really changed too much. I feel Arsenal will receive more than 2 goals. Oh, they better not, unless they score 7 or 8. But don't you think Gabriel and Rice are a little bit risky? I wouldn't say it's risky because it's a very template and safe play for a lot of people. But I'm not too surprised. If Newcastle were to score, yeah, that wouldn't shock me considering the way Arsenal played recently. And I think Bruno Guimaraes makes such a massive difference there. So that could be a difficult game for the Gunners. But ultimately, anyone's difficult right now for Arsenal. So I get what you're saying. If you don't expect them to keep a clean sheet and you think 2+ goals conceded, then don't go for them at all. Don't go for Gabriel or Ryan in that case. But I'm still going to go for at least one of them. Hi, Dylan. Would you go Chow to Saliba for a -4 or roll? For a -4, probably not. I'd roll. I'm gone for Jay Cunha on free hit tonight with Murillo being injured. Has some goal threat from set pieces due to being 6'6". Yeah, I talked about him in the Club World Cup last season. That was a fun fantasy game for sure. Yeah, that's not a bad shout. And ultimately, Sunderland and Nottingham Forest are both in the top 6 for the clean sheet probabilities, which I highlighted in my free hit squad video. Now, that's completely up to you. I wouldn't recommend a Tottenham player as the captain, but I think Solanke would be one of the better ones for sure that they have to offer. Maybe he should be included in my top 10 list over Wilson and Gibbs-White, for example, but yeah, not for me. I think Bruno Fernandes and Salah are the clear standouts. Do you think Villa will rest some of the players before the semi-final versus Forest in the Europa League? Well, it's possible. Ultimately, with Aston Villa, the Europa League will be the main priority. Unai Emery knows how to win it. And in the Premier League, they have been fairly inconsistent, especially since December. But ultimately, I think Aston Villa will rotate more so later in the season. I think for this game, for example, against Fulham, they should be fine. And with Forest, they have been very consistent with their starting 11. Only a few changes at most, but ultimately, it depends on if any players are in the red zone, if there's any risk of injury, so that also plays a factor, and we're not privy to that sort of information. Play Wilson or Rodgers? Probably Rodgers. I can't get up to Watkins. Thiago, find cover? Yes. Thiago scored 2 goals against United earlier this season. Rice and Watkins or Rodgers and Havertz? Rice and Watkins. If you can only pick one player per club in this free hit team, what would it be? Interesting question. Okay, I'm going to say from Arsenal, Gabriel. From Sunderland, Roths. From Nottingham Forest, Gibbs-White. Fulham, Wilson. Aston Villa, Watkins. For Liverpool, Salah. Ismaila Sarr for Crystal Palace. Bowen for West Ham, but I've got a sneaky feeling about Tati Castellanos, to be fair. For Everton, that's a more difficult one. Neither Dewsbury Hall or Ndiaye have a great record against them, but I'm going to say Ndiaye. Wolves, not really a big fan here. Maybe Mane just for the numbers. Tottenham Hotspur, Pedro Porro. That's debatable for sure. For Newcastle, Harvey Barnes. Man United, Bruno Fernandes, and Thiago for Brentford. So some of them are quite template, simple ones, but I went for something a little bit different for a few of them, actually. Thanks, Harrison James. Much appreciated. And if you're enjoying the content, smash the like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and also check the links in the description. There's my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. You know the drill by now. And you can also join my FPL and FPL Challenge Leagues. Leave a 5-star review on Spotify and follow me on that platform. What about Gibbs-White to Wood for the free hit? Well, that wouldn't be a direct switch because they are different positions. So it depends who you're replacing Gibbs-White with and who you're selling to buy Chris Wood. But I'm not a big fan of Chris Wood at the moment. If Villa win Europa League and they finish at least 5th in the Premier League, number 6 will also get Champions League spot. Yeah, we always say this, but ultimately I think Aston Villa will win Europa League. I'm very confident about that. And even when they had that sort of rough patch a few months ago, I still had that belief, and we'll see what happens in the end. Milenkovic against Brobby should be an interesting battle tonight. 2 of the most physical players in the Premier League. Yeah, that's a good shout. And ultimately, that game will be very physical in general. So that could be one of the key duels and battles that decides the game. Ultimately, I think Milenkovic comes out on top of that one, but maybe I'm wrong. Already have Gabriel, by Hincapié, Mosquera, Pedro Porro, by Wilson, Szoboszlai, and Ndiaye, Xavi Simons. Probably Wilson. He's got a great home record at Craven Cottage. As for the defender move, probably Pedro Porro over the Arsenal options. That'd be my advice. Okay, so I have caught up to all the questions and comments for now. Keep them coming. What I'm going to do now, though, is go for some different screens. And we'll start off with the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating, until Game Week 38, because we are very close to the end of the season. Man City are top despite blanking in 34. Just bear in mind, this is probably influenced by the fact that it says they've got 2 doubles in a row. but ultimately Crystal Palace will either go into 36 or 37. There's also the odd possibility, well, as you can see, obviously that Bournemouth will double as well, but we have to take that with a pinch of salt. Wolves are second, so I wouldn't be recommending their assets, to be fair, but they have nothing to lose at this point. Arsenal are third, with Crystal Palace and Sunderland in the top 5. Even Man United are quite high up with Tottenham Hotspur. As for the bottom 5, we've got Bournemouth, Chelsea, Burnley, and Brighton, who are one of the most informed teams in the country. Brentford are 16th, and ultimately, yeah, they still have some good options like Igor Thiago, but he's probably the main one there. With predicted points until the end of the campaign, Haaland is top. Gabriel, Fernandes, Salah, and Guehi are in the top 5, with O'Reilly, Thiago, Rice, Saliba, and Semenyo. So a lot of Arsenal and Man City players in there. Not so sure about Guehi being that high up, but maybe he's got a surprise in store for us. In terms of price changes, we could see Rodgers, Pedro Porro, Xavi Simons, Cunha, Solanke, Watkins, Bruno Fernandes, Dewsbury Hall, Bowen, and Tarkowski all rise tonight. And the list continues with Gibbs White, Igor Jesus, Gabriel, Casemiro, Ndiaye, Mohamed Salah, Gakpo, Lacroix, Mitchell, Brobbey. And that's about it, but not all of these will happen. In terms of price falls, we could see Dango Ouattara, Iwobi, who's doubtful to start here, Chow, Angel Gomez, Mbumo, Rayan, Semenyo, Vandenberg, Sharda, Anthony Gordon, Senesi, Marino, and Hall. Quite a few of these players are in my normal squad, so I need to probably clean that up when possible. Now, this is a stats comparison between two of the best forwards for Blank Gameweek 34, Jarrod Bowen and Ollie Watkins. Now, Bowen has more goal contributions in general, but Watkins has 3 extra goals there, and quite a few of them have come in recent matches. He's also been scoring in the Europa League with 67 shots, whilst Bowen has 71, but Watkins does lead when it comes to shots on target and inside the box, and there's a clear difference in XG, almost double the amount of Jarrod Bowen, but the XA is definitely in the West Ham talisman's favour, with 9 big chances there for him and 11 big chances created, but Watkins has 27 big chances, which is one of the highest in the Premier League behind Igor Thiago and Erling Haaland. When it comes to key passes, Bowen almost has double the amount of Ollie Watkins there, but I think both of them are solid choices and they're both in my setup at the moment, and that leads to the best free hit squad I talked about a few days ago, which had Harry Wilson in there and Mateus Cunha, but that one could be a little bit of a risky pick. He might not even start for Manchester United, so something else we could do here is go for Dominic Szoboszlai, who is also in the starting 11. Possibly Xavi Simons or Ndiaye as well. That could work fairly well. And you could also go, I'll be honest, I think Watkins is still really appealing. And if not, there's Morgan Rodgers. So this is a slightly different structure with the 3-5-2. 0.5 in the bank for me personally, which isn't great. There's Kinski in here, Danso, Diouf, and Mane. So that speaks for itself. And this is the wildcard team, which has a few Crystal Palace players in there already for their potential double in 36. But if Bournemouth were the ones who ended up doubling, that would be far from ideal. And that's where the likes of Hill, Senesi could be very handy indeed. Maybe even Tavernier as well. There are 2 Arsenal players in Raya and Gabriel. Mukiele, you've got a full starting 11, albeit Richards doesn't look great on paper against Liverpool away. You've also got Struijk, O'Reilly, and Haaland, who all blank in 34, but of course City will double. And by rolling in 35, you could easily get to this sort of team and triple up on Palace with Henderson, Richards, and Mateta, sorry. And for Man City, O'Reilly, Cherki, and Haaland. So that would look very solid on paper, and the expected points would be significantly higher than that over time. Now let's have a look at FPL Challenge. It's still the same as what I discussed in yesterday's double upload, with Robin Rose in goal, Gabriel, Bruno Fernandes captain, Salah, Bowen, and Ollie Watkins. And this week it is called MVP. So players who collect the maximum bonus points earn 10 points rather than 3. So that is a massive boost there. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is just show you the team selection graphics briefly. And of course, you can see the full analysis in that podcast with the review of Double Gameweek 33, where I activated the bench boost. Both my goalkeepers scored 8 points in Verbruggen and Darlow, whilst Van Heck and O'Reilly produced double-digit hauls in that defensive line. Senesi got the assist and had another one chalked off. Unfortunately, Pascal Gross was my standout player with 16 points, and ultimately it was 127 points overall. The big disappointments, of course, were Joao Pedro, who didn't feature whatsoever, Palmer, and Antoine Semenyo. Those three were the big disappointments, and I'd also include Cucurella in there as well, to be fair. Everyone else did something. Even Bruno Fernandes with a single game week got the assist against Chelsea. Tavernier scored in the first game, then blanked in the second, but still happy with his performance. And with Calvert-Lewin, a similar story there as well, so I can't really complain on that front. I captained Erling Haaland, who was my joint second highest scoring player in this 15-man squad. Obviously, Gross was number one. And on my bench, I also had Hill, who got 5 points. He scored an own goal and was still able to get something, but a bit disappointing on that front. So 22 points on the bench boost, technically 17 with Hill coming on for Joao Pedro, but these are the prices which haven't really changed too much overnight. I think Watkins was the one who actually went up to 8.7 million, but these were my transfer plans, selling Verbruggen to Raya on the free hit, with Senesi to Mukiele. Now, I'm also considering Robin Roofs as my goalkeeper, but in terms of doubling up on Sunderland or Nottingham Forest defensively, I'm not really looking at that sort of structure. And in the midfield, Palmer to Salah is definitely a standout move. And up front, Jarrod Bowen would replace Joao Pedro, who actually went down to 7.6 million overnight, and Watkins is also right on radar for me. So the double gimmick, blank gimmick 34, I should say, Raya in goal, Mukiele, Gabriel, and possibly Pedro Porro. Then in the midfield, this is what I went for yesterday, but Xavi Simons is not locked in for me, and that's why I've currently got something a little bit different. But I think what separates my team from a lot of others is having three forwards in Thiago, Watkins, and Jarrod Bowen. A lot of people have only two of them, and I think that could be a nice way to separate myself from the rest of the pack. Fernandes is my captain, and Salah's the vice. The bench is quite weak, though, with Kinski, Diouf, Heaven, and Dalman. And currently I've got Woodman over Kinski. It's not really that big of a deal. And the expected points is also quite stable at this moment in time. But what about my scoreline predictions and all that jazz? Well, Sunderland 1, Nottingham Forest 1, Fulham 1, Aston Villa 2, Liverpool 2, Crystal Palace 2, West Ham 1, Everton 1, Wolves 1, Tottenham 2, and I've gone for a 2-0 win for Arsenal, and they might need more goals than that if they want to win the title. Man United 2, and Brentford 1. So next up will be the team weakness and the heat map. If I can get that to actually load up correctly. But yeah, after all this, I'm going to show you the predicted lineups and then go back to your questions and do some sort of quick fire responses there to you. But this is the team weakness. I'm focusing on Crystal Palace, and they do concede a lot of chances on the right-hand side. And that's where one player could profit in Mohamed Salah. But Mitchell has done fairly well against them in recent matchups. And Crystal Palace have also gotten the better out of Liverpool, who are top of the clean sheet odds, by the way, with a 42% chance. Arsenal are second with 40%, and Tottenham Hotspur are surprisingly third, with Nottingham Forest, Sunderland, West Ham in the top 6. Newcastle are joint bottom with 13%. And that leads to the top 10 captains, with Bruno Fernandes number 1. Salah is probably the closest rival to him, with Jarrod Bowen, Watkins, and Gabriel completing the top 5. Then there's Thiago and Cunha, who I've swapped, but there's definitely a case to maybe get rid of Cunha entirely, and that's where Mbumo could be very interesting indeed. I've also got Rodgers, Gibbs, White, and Wilson there, but some of you might argue towards Solanke or a different player. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. And let's now go to those lineups, which will be slightly shorter than usual because 6 teams will blank, of course, in 34. So for Arsenal, Raya, Mosquera, Saliba, Gabriel, and Hincapié, Zubimendi, Odegaard, and Rice, Madueke, Eze, and Kai Havertz to lead the line once more. For Aston Villa, I've gone for Martinez, Cash, Konsa, with Pau Torres and Luka Dean, but those two could be replaced by Mings and Matson once again, with Onana, Tielemans, McGinn, Barkley, Rodgers, and Watkins. Next up is going to be, not Bournemouth this time, but Brentford, with Kelleher, Coyote, Vandenberg, Collins, Lewis Potter, Yarmouk, Jensen, Dango Ouattara, Damsgaard, Schade, and Igor Thiago, who has been one of the best strikers this season, with Crystal Palace, Dean Henderson, Richards, Lacroix, Canvot. I think Wharton could start. He is available to face Liverpool away, with Kamada, Munoz, Mitchell, Ismaila Sarr to start, with Yeremy Pino and Jean-Philippe Mateta. Next up is Everton with Pickford, O'Brien, Tarkowski, and Keane, with Branthwaite out for the rest of the season. Mikalenko, Idrissa Gana-Gueye, Garner, McNeil, Dewsbury Hall, Indai, and Tierno Barry to replace the injured Beto. With Fulham, Leno, Castagna, Anderson, Bassi, Sessegnon, Lukic, Sandberg, Wilson, King, Chukwueze, and Rodrigo Muniz. The Premier League champions will likely go for Woodman in goal, but Alisson is close to return with Frimpong, Konate, Van Dijk and Kirkes, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, Salah, Wirtz, Gakpo and Alexander Isak. Next up is Manchester United, and this is where a change could happen. Instead of Cunha, there is the possibility that Mbeumo and Amad Diallo are the wingers, Sesko up front and Bruno Fernandes just behind. The rest of the squad would comprise of Lamens, Dalot, Heaven, Maguire, Shaw, Casemiro and Kobbie Mainoo in the midfield. With Newcastle United, there is the possibility to switch to a back three, but I've gone for Ramsdale, Trippier, Chow, Botman and Hall. So Joelinton is suspended, and Livramento and Gordon will both miss the trip to the Emirates, with Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes and Miley in the midfield, Elanga, Barnes and Osula as the front three. We have a couple of teams left, including Nottingham Forest, with Sells, Aina, Milenkovic, Jack, Cunha, Nico Williams, Sangare, Anderson, Hutchinson, Gibbs-White, Ndoye and Chris Wood to face. Well, that should be different, by the way. Should be Sunderland away. And for the Black Cats, it's going to be Rovs, Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, Renildo Mandava, Siddiqui, Xhaka, Rig, Diarra, Lefay, and Brobby. And the next two look pretty decent for the Black Cats. Next up is Tottenham Hotspur with Kinski, Bedroborro, Danso, Van de Ven, Udogi, Bentancur, Bissouma, Kolomuani, Gallagher, Xavi Simons, and Dominic Solanke. We have West Ham as well, with Hermanson, Walker-Peters, Mavropanos, Disasi, Diouf, Soucek, Fernandez, Bowen, Pablo, Somerville, and Tati Castellanos. The last team is a relegated team in Wolves here, and I've gone for 2 yellow flag players in the starting 11 with Jose Sa and Krejci. If they're unavailable, they could obviously be replaced by the likes of Bentley and maybe something a little bit different defensively. That's where someone like Doherty could come into play. I've gone for Santiago Bueno and Totti in that defensive line with Pedro Lima and Hugo Bueno, Andre and Joao Gomez, Bellegarde, Mane and Armstrong to face Tottenham at home. So hopefully this has been very useful to you. You know the drill by now. Like, subscribe, hype, all that good stuff. And you can also share this with those that love FPL and UCL Fantasy. So stay tuned for the best team heading into matchday 15, the first leg of the semi-finals. And my own team selection will give you a different outlook with 5 available moves at my disposal, no wildcard off, limitless chip to use in the Champions League. And next Tuesday, I'll be going live once more with a Matchday 15 deadline stream. We're approaching the end of the season, of course, and let's get everything in order and get those green arrows. Payman Armin says, hi, which 2 should I bench? Mavropanos, Xavi Simons, Casemiro, Solanke, and Watkins? Interesting question. I would go for Mavropanos on the bench and possibly Casemiro here, even though he's the most likely to give you something like 4 or 5 points. Play Vandenberg or Chow? Vandenberg. Heideland, Dewsbury Hall or Gibbs-White? Gibbs-White, but it's a close one. Crazy, we have the exact same amount of points before this next game starts, 1,975. Well, yeah, hopefully we get to 2,000 this week, otherwise it's probably a disaster. Mavropanos, Van de Ven or Richards? For this week, I'm going to say Van de Ven. He's got the biggest goal threat from those, even though Mavropanos scored a brace fairly recently. If Wolves beat Spurs this game week, are Spurs done? I wouldn't say they're done, but they are in a very dangerous place, and that's where I think most people would predict them to go down instead of West Ham, but I wouldn't say it's over. I wouldn't captain Gabriel. He's 5th in my list, but that's because the alternatives aren't really that great. And I did say in some of my videos that I wouldn't captain Gabriel personally, especially over Fernandes or Salah. Can Saka be an option? Yes, but the minutes will be managed, so it's a bit of a risk there. And also, he hasn't been great this season. He's getting decent goals and assists per 90, which is the most important thing from an FPL perspective, but not many double-digit hauls, and we've definitely seen Saka perform much better. But hopefully he can come back for Arsenal and produce big moments because he's a quality player, but I think against Newcastle, he's not in my starting 11. I think he'll be on the bench, and I think over time, Arsenal will ease him back in and have him ready for the last couple of games of the season, which they're going to need him for. How do you expect Sesko to perform? Believe he scored his first United goal against Brentford. Yes, he did. It was a scrappy one. I remember that. But yeah, Sesko is an awkward one because sometimes he's better off the bench. I think when he starts, yeah, he's scored a few times, but I just don't think he offers that sheer consistency. I think United Brentford could be high scoring, to be fair, and I don't mind having that secondary Man United attacker. But I think Mbeumo would be the better pick. And I know he's 8.6 million or 8.5, but that's probably the preference for me. So when I make the alterations to the predicted lineup for United and also the top 10 Campsy list, that's where Cunha could make way. But yeah, Sesko's not a bad shout. I just prefer Bowen, Watkins, Solanke. Not sure about Gyökeres, to be fair, this week. I don't think he's going to start anyway, but yeah, I think Watkins is probably number one. If not, he's in the top three for sure. And Tati Castellanos does appeal to me, actually, against Everton at home. I'm just going to have a look quickly at another Man United predicted lineup and see if we have any updates on them. So let's see if I can find something. Yeah, I did see one lineup with him, but yeah, not sure how reliable that is. To be fair, it's just a predicted lineup anyway. Yeah, I'm going to keep Cunha in there for now, to be fair, but not a guarantee, of course. Hey, Dylan, should I keep Mbeumo or get Lefay/Cherki? Well, it makes no sense to buy Cherki now. He's blanking in 34. I'd keep Mbeumo for now and then sell him to Cherki in 35 or 36. That would be my advice. Thoughts on Sesko, Havertz, and Isak as differentials? Yeah, look, all of them have their appeal, and we all know what Isak can do. Last season he was brilliant, and it hasn't really been the same at Liverpool so far, but against Crystal Palace, I'm still looking at Salah, Szoboszlai, and Van Dijk as the best Liverpool assets. I think Isak would still be a little bit far behind there. Ultimately, from the three you mentioned, I'd probably be more keen on Sesko, but yeah, Havertz has scored a couple of important goals for Arsenal recently, including the one to send them to the Champions League semi-finals. He missed so many big chances against Man City, though, so even the one he scored, probably not enough, really, in the grand scheme of things. Thanks to the moderators, by the way, like Lager, much appreciated. But yeah, Sesko would be the preference from those three. Best 6.5 million mid for no free hit. Probably Wilson then. Because if you said free hit, I'd probably entertain Xavi Simons, but long term, I'd rather have Wilson. Sell Gordon for Gibbs White, Garner, Gisbury Hall, Rice, or Casemiro. They're all valid choices. I think they have their merits, but this might sound crazy. I might even go for Casemiro here. He's been very consistent. He's cheaper, and it allows you to make other moves elsewhere. But yeah, Rice is still solid. It's just the output has definitely reduced dramatically. And for Gibbs White, we've seen big moments from him. Not much creativity, but the goal scoring has been very impressive. It's not really my final squad. I mean, basically, it's not fully locked in. There's a chance that I make late changes, but ultimately, there's a few things I'm 50-50 about, like Rodgers, for example. Even the structure, I might switch to a front two and then have five midfielders. That's a possibility, but I'd say less likely at this stage. Van Dijk in for Borro is also reasonable, or another possibility. I think Fernandes, Salah would be sort of locked in, and two of these three forwards you see in Thiago, Watkins, and Bowen will be there as well. Gabriel as well. Goalkeeper, there is the possibility to go to Rofs. So as you can see, there's a few details that could change. Even my backup, like Kinski and for Woodman, but ultimately, I think the vast majority of this will be final. Yeah, 6 teams are blanking in 34. So basically the ones that doubled in 33, Man City, Chelsea, Brighton, Leeds, Bournemouth, they're all going to blank in 34. So that's the way to really approach this. That's why using the free hit and wild card is very important in this sort of period. Would you prefer Szoboszlai and Dewsbury Hall or Casemiro and Xavi Simons? I'd say for this week, probably Casemiro and Xavi Simons. So playing a free hit, I've got two Tottenham players in Bodder and Xavi Simons. What do you think about not having Solanke and bringing in Bowen? I do prefer Bowen anyway, but I get the appeal of Solanke, and ultimately he's one of the better Tottenham players on paper. He's probably going to start as well. So, good question, but I'd lean towards Bowen. Hi Dylan, Szoboszlai or Gibbs White? I'd probably say Gibbs White. I mean, he's in my top 10 camps list, although that's certainly debatable and maybe he shouldn't be there. But yeah, I've gone for Szoboszlai at the moment, and it's also a funds issue. I don't have enough to go to Morgan Gibbs White anyway, and it would cause a clash if you have Rovs or Mukiele starting for you. I saw stats City versus Palace, double Gameweek in 36 or 37. Yeah, only time will tell, but 36 is still the more likely, but we need to get confirmation fairly soon over the next week or so. Thank you, Arabo, for the super chat. Bench boost 33 ruined me, and I went from first to 37 points behind in my mini league. Now I'm a very differential free hit and hope to get lucky. Do I play Armstrong or Somerville? I'd rather play Somerville there, but not a bad idea to have a Wolves attacker against Tottenham. Maybe I'm going about it the wrong way having Bedra Borra there, but yeah, hopefully you can get back on track. I mean, certain weeks can be very swingy, and obviously last week was one prime example, so all the best to you for the rest of the season. I'd go for Somerville there for sure. Thoughts on Somerville as a punt instead of Bowen? Well, we saw a purple patch from him around 2 months ago, and then he got injured, unfortunately, but Somerville is probably one of the better West Ham assets, but I still think Bowen and Tati Castellanos would be the most appealing for me. Bowen or Watkins, no free hit. Watkins. Start Solanke or Ndai? Solanke. I'm torn between both pentakers. Wolves concede a lot from strikers, and West Ham conceded the most from left wing. Yeah, neither has a great record against their respective opponent. I think Solanke's got 2 goals against Wolves, and Ndai has never scored, albeit he's only played twice, I think, against West Ham. But I would go for Solanke. Which player that hasn't been talked about much will outscore the favourite picks? Tati Castellanos? Rogers? These names spring to mind. Dominic Solanke can't be too far off either. Raya or Pedro Porro? Raya. Does Richarlison start? I don't think so. If you rewind a few minutes, you're going to see all my predicted lineups for the 14 Premier League teams featuring this week. Thank you, Manuel. Yeah, potential clean sheet odds this game week. I did show it earlier. And yeah, I'll go for it later on, closer to the deadline. Maybe in like an hour or just under that. Szoboszlai or Gibbs White? It's a close call as well, but I would probably say long-term Szoboszlai. But for this week, yeah, I've got Gibbs White on my top 10 camps list. What I'm probably going to do is alter some of the captaincy list metrics and stuff, and maybe that's where I can show you the clean sheet odds again and the top 10 captains. But yeah, that's a close call. Cheers, Dylan. Would you bring in Rodgers over Gakpo? I would. I'm not that fussed on Gakpo. He could play up front, but I think more likely we'll see him on the left. And in the last 2 games, he has returned with 5 and 6 points. But yeah, I'm just not a big fan of Gakpo. He's very inconsistent as well. He started the season relatively well when it comes to goals and assists, but yeah, very soon we found out what he was about, and I sold him fairly quickly afterwards. So I'm just going to make some alterations to the top 10 captains as well. So let's get that show on the road. And also some polls I think would be quite useful. Let's go for Pedro Porro and Van Dijk. So that'll be the first poll of the evening, if you will. Wow, 70% have already gone for Pedro Porro. That was quick. Okay, interesting. Better fixture on paper, I'll give you that. Okay, so I think with the top 10 captaincy list, I'm going to get rid of Cunha. Just going to go for something a little bit different. Yeah, I'm going to go for Solanke in the top 10. There is a bit of a late push now for Tottenham assets. Okay, so this should be ready for you fairly soon. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that, I think, as my top 10 camps list. It's going to be fairly interesting, to say the least. Yeah, it's not too bad. Okay, so a few things I want to play around with. As you can see here, this was my team literally going into this deadline stream and what I discussed in my team selection. So Kinski ahead of Woodman. I mean, that's pretty inconsequential anyway. On the bench, Renildo Mandava over Diouf. Then there's the case of Rogers over Xavi Simons. And the rest is pretty much the same. But even the change of structure to a 3-5-2 is definitely on the cards here when it comes to the free hit squad. So it's something that I'm not completely ruling out. Van Dijk because I hate Spurs. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, look. Van Dijk is better for DEFCON. There's no doubt about that. And goal scoring potential. But obviously, Borro has the assist threat, especially from open play. Wolves have nothing to lose, really. And I don't think Tottenham or Liverpool will keep a clean sheet for that matter. I think Gibbs White's performance last game will be the only time Gibbs White scores a hat-trick. Well, he's not going to score many throughout his career. But he has improved the goal scoring this season. I wouldn't really mind, easy, as long as I don't start him in my FPL team. In Dyer Wilson long term. Wilson. Hi Dylan, is it crazy to use only my 5 free transfers plus Bruno Fernandes already in my squad and save the free hit for a double game week, especially with the lack of super picks this game week? The thing is, you're only going to get one double, and it's not going to be a big one. Like, even 33 technically wasn't that big, but that's basically all we're going to get. So Man City and Crystal Palace will likely double in 36. So Everton would face Everton at home. Yeah, Palace would face Everton at home and Man City away. And City would have 2 home games against Palace and Brentford. But the alternative is Bournemouth doubling instead of Palace. So you're not really going to get too much more out of it. Yeah, it depends on your 15-man squad and which players you've got already. But ultimately, I think free hitting now is definitely plausible for a lot of people. It makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I'd be quite conscious about that. And you've got 5 free transfers, which is a very good position to be in. You don't have to use all of them. So free hitting now and still having 5 free transfers for the running could be very useful, especially for the last game week or two, where we could see more rotation. Certain teams would have achieved their objectives. They're going to be on the beach. There'll be more rotation as well. And it also helps you navigate any potential suspensions or injuries in the process. MMK says starting 11, Raya, Gabriel, Michele, Tarkovsky, Anderson, Wilson, and Mbumo. Bruno, Thiago, Watkins, Gyökeres. Any changes I could make? Yeah, Gyökeres I'm not convinced about. He might not even start there against Newcastle. So I would probably suggest Gyökeres to Bowen. And if you want a differential, someone like Solanke or Tati Castellanos could definitely be quite appealing for you. Yeah, the rest looks pretty sound. It's just, yeah, you've got Tarkovsky in your starting 11. So having him and Bowen might be counterproductive, to be fair. So yeah, I'd be a bit conscious about that as well. This is not a free hit team though. You've got 5 free transfers, right? It's not looking too bad, and I'd definitely keep him booming for this one, but maybe he's a sell in 35 or 36. Spurs relegation to Championship or Leicester back-to-back relegations. Well, both could happen. Leicester are on the brink, so they're in big trouble 10 years after winning the Premier League, which is crazy. yeah, I mean, if you're giving me the option, I'm going to say Tottenham all day long, but I still think they'll find a way to survive. But they have to beat Wolves. I mean, yeah, they can't afford to lose this one. That's for sure. Dan, go to Rodgers or Roll? I'd go to Rodgers because I also like his fixtures against Burnley and Tottenham. So that would be my 2 cents on it. Okay, I'm just going to update these graphics as well. And also the predicted lineups, although I still think Cunha will start. I'm just not fully sold on it. Okay, so yeah, I'll get those lineups out again. Welcome, Simeon, good to see you. And also to Item Lad, hope you're well too. This is my current free hit team. Yeah, a lot of people are free hitting this week. Raya, Valdimarsson, Van Dijk, Porro, Gabriel, Wilson, Gibbs-White, Bruno, Salah, Dewsbury Hall, Watkins, Bowen, Guiu. Thoughts? Yeah, there's not any pick that I look at and think is terrible. Now, ultimately, Kinski or Woodman would be better than Valdimarsson, but that's really nitpicky and it doesn't make a big difference to your team. You've got probably the best defensive line you can build with Van Dijk, Porro, and Gabriel, so it looks fine. So yeah, you're not backing Sunderland defensively, which is good. I mean, you got Gibbs White in there, that's fair enough. No clashes really that spring to mind, so it's looking solid. No Thiago, who did score 2 goals against United early in the season, and despite the Red Devils improving, I still think their defence is quite shaky, and I could see Brentford scoring a goal or 2 at Old Trafford, but yeah, it's looking pretty promising, and you've got Dewsbury Hall in there. I don't think he has a great record against West Ham. He might have 1 assist, if that. It's possible he's never even produced a return against the Hammers, but I'll have to double check that again. But yeah, I was thinking of Dewsbury Hall myself, and I'm not fully sold on him and many of the midfielders this week. Bono's creativity is a little bit behind Salah. Yeah, and both of them are down compared to previous campaigns, but for a defender, I still think it's fairly impressive. Hi Dylan, Solanke or Ndai, if you have to pick one, Solanke. Apparently it was just a rest day for Cunha, no injury, and Man United don't play until Monday. Yeah, that's a really good point, and they usually play on Mondays, their new favourite day of the week, I guess, but yeah, I think Cunha will start for what it's worth. I'm not fully settled on it. I have more concerns about him than Mbumo, who is yellow flagged, but he should be fine. So yeah, just going to get this up. Okay, Man United away. I think everything else should be in order. So yeah, I think all the graphics are set now, and I made a few adjustments to the captaincy list, which you're going to see later in this video. Minor tweaks mainly at the bottom of the list, if you will. What's the biggest problem Spurs have overall in the last 2 years of disaster? Well, obviously the Europa League win papered over the cracks, but I mean, they finished 17th last year and people thought it was a fluke. It was like a one-off season, and the Europa League was sort of used as an excuse, really, in terms of focusing on that competition and abandoning the Prem, if you will. But yeah, if the bottom 3 weren't so poor, I mean, Tottenham would have been in real danger. The same goes for United last season as well. But yeah, I think where do you even start? I mean, defensively, they're a shambles. They score a lot of set-piece goals, but they also concede quite a few themselves. And I think with Tottenham, the main issue is defensively. They just concede way too many goals. And I think even last season they had good goal difference because they scored a lot. But yeah, that is a big problem. They need to sort out that defence and the midfield big time. I think they're quite weak in the middle of the park. So that definitely plays a big factor. Rank Ds for this week: Borro, Tarkovsky, Mukiele, Nico Williams. Similar to the way you've listed them, but I'd probably put Mukiele over Tarkovsky. Mavropanos against Alderete, Xavi Simons against Solanke, allowing Thiago, Rodgers against Watkins, allowing Wilson. I would go for Alderete, Xavi Simons and Watkins. Spurs or West Ham, which team will stay in the Premier League? At the moment, I'd say Spurs, but not by much, and I think this weekend could be pivotal. FPL draft here, Diouf or Spence? Diouf. I don't think Spence starts. It's probably going to be Odogi at left back anyway. Thank you very much. Same team with Van Dijk. Was it? VVG instead of Raya and Rovs in goal for Mukiele. Okay. Van Dijk and Raya. Yeah, not too bad. Solanke instead of Simmons and Morgan Gibbs-White. Yeah, I do like the Solanke pick. Just to be clear, by the way, this was my pre-deadline stream team. This is what I've currently got. I've got Rodgers in here. It's very similar, to be honest. It's just a few changes on the bench, and then Rodgers versus Xavi Simons. It's not fully locked in, but I think a lot of the pieces are sort of settled. Hola, I have a full starting 11 this week. It isn't the strongest, but also have 4 free transfers. Would you think I use a transfer like a free hit and save wildcard for next game week? Yeah, that's the thing, because having a lot of free transfers is a sort of insurance policy, and it's very important, especially to navigate the last couple of game weeks of the season where you're going to get more rotation. Some teams have secured their objectives and others will have something to play for. So having that in the bank is going to be very useful. If you've only got the wild card left and nothing else, then fair enough. And I think dead ending your team into 34 with free transfers and then wild carding out of it, that could certainly work as well. So without knowing your team, it's difficult to say definitively, but I'm probably going to say, yeah, use your transfers now and wild card in 35. But certain picks could actually deviate and change my sort of perception of what you should do. Josh 10 says, yo, Dylan, I'm stuck. I have wild card and triple captain. 1 free transfer, only Kelleher, Timber, Dallo, Richards, Alderete, Sarr, Wilson, Dango, Fernandez, Thiago, Joao Pedro, Gordon, Sanchez, Welbeck, Senesi. Should I wildcard? Yeah, Gordon's unavailable. Obviously, Joao Pedro is blanking anyway. Yeah, the thing is, like, I would wildcard that. I mean, you've got Timber there as well, who's not going to be in the squad. Yeah, wildcard now, triple captain whenever Man City double, which will likely be in 36. It could be 37, but yeah, I think that's the best plan for you, Josh. Do you think Havertz starts? Yes, I do. I showed my predicted lineups earlier. You'll see it one more time before the deadline locks in over an hour. I think Havertz will lead the line for Arsenal. My current free hit team: Raya, Sells, Van Dijk, Mavropanos, Gabriel, Borro, Dewsbury Hall, Bruno, Salah, Lefay, Watkins, Bowen, Thiago. Looking good, and the only one, possibly 2 players I'd maybe highlight is Dewsbury Hall and Lefay. And they're good options in isolation, but ideally I'd spend a bit more money in the midfield. But I do like your front line, and yeah, your defense looks solid too. I mean, you do have Mavropanos there as well. I think Everton could score, but yeah, that's probably the main concern, that you've got Dewsbury Hall and Mavropanos at the same time. I'm not sure what your full 50-man squad is, because you've listed a lot of the players, but I think there's 1 or 2 missing. They could just be budget options like Heaven from Man United, but yeah, looking pretty promising. But just be conscious about clashes like Tarkovsky, or in your case, Dewsbury Hall and Mavropanos. With whom would you replace Joao Pedro at similar price or less? Solanke or Havertz? Solanke. But ultimately, I think Bowen, Thiago, Watkins would be better choices as well, but yeah, obviously you said similar price or less, so Watkins is out of the equation there. Use free hit or wildcard? Free hit, but it's very team dependent as well. For some people, wildcard could work, and I talked about this in my wildcard video, because you can set yourself up for having free Palace and free City for double gaming 36, and that could work very well. But ultimately, wildcarding in 35 will give you more information and a bit more clarity on the double. When it happens, is it going to be 36 or 37? Will it be Bournemouth or Crystal Palace? And there you'll know the answers, and you can build an even stronger wildcard team that can sort of transcend Blank Gameweek 34. After very high points in the bench boost double game week, how many points do you think will be dropped? Well, I don't expect it to be a high scoring week, but sometimes blanks can surprise you for a good reason or for the wrong one. But yeah, I'm expecting a significant drop in points, but ultimately it's about getting the green arrow. That's the most important. Hey Dylan, do you think Cunha will start? Yes, I do. I personally would keep Cunha and not sell him to Gakpo, who I'm not a big fan of. Nice YouTube emoji there, Lager. Spurs used to have Hugo Lloris, Kane and Son. Yeah, but they won virtually nothing with that group. I know Son ended up winning Europa League last season, but Lloris and Kane weren't there. This current one who replaces them are downgraded. Well, then it goes to show as well the quality of Europa League as well recently, but that's just my opinion. Yeah, look. Ultimately, with Tottenham Hotspur, they have some good players in there, but defensively they've been a shambles, and it's also down to tactics and the direction of the club. And for years, they were going for more defensive-minded managers like Conte and Mourinho. Then they did a 180 on it with Ange Postecoglou, and yeah, it's just a bit of a mess in terms of direction. I'm not sure what the context is here. Palagan sent, I should say. You say give me 5 players, but well, like, who do you have? What's your chip strategy and stuff like that? It's just like, I can list 5 players. Gabriel, Raya, Watkins. I mean, yeah, Bruno Fernandes, and then I can just say Salah, but Salah might not be feasible for you because of budget. You might not be free hitting, so that's why it's important to know the context. Yeah, of course. Premier League's had fantasy for a while, mate. There's also the Champions League. That's been going for a while. World Cup. There's a fantasy game for everything nowadays. Chow 2, I have Gabriel and Van Dijk. You could say Pedro Porro. It depends as well on the amount of transfers you have remaining, your remaining chips as well. It might not look great for this week, but a Palace defender could be quite useful, especially if they double in 36, and that's where Munoz could also come into play. What happened to Joao Pedro? Well, I covered the news in some of my recent videos and also on the Discord server, so he's not far away from returning. He's probably going to be there for the FA Cup semi-final against Leeds and for Game Week 35, but yeah, he missed both matches. I think it was just a small problem, but it was enough to see him miss out. Best goalkeeper besides Raya for the week? I'd say Robin Rofs. He's in my FPL Challenge League. There's not really any news on Mbeumo per se. I think he's going to start. It's not a big problem anyway. And United play on Monday. Hi Dylan, do you think Gyökeres will start? No, I don't. I'm thinking of bringing him in for Thiago on free hit. No, I don't think Gyökeres will start. I think it'll be Havertz. So I personally would avoid Victor Gyökeres. Why not Gibbs White or Dewsbury Hall or Xavi or Gakpo for free hit? Pick me 2. Well, you can't have them all, and ultimately you have to be mindful about clashes in your starting 11. But I prefer Szoboszlai over Gakpo, and yeah, I talked about a lot of these players in detail already. But for example, if you've got Sunderland defenders or Rofs and goal, going for Gibbs White is counterproductive, and Dewsbury Hall doesn't have a great record against West Ham, I should say. So yeah, ultimately there are different reasons for each one. I think Gakpo's been quite poor this season. Xavi Simons had a great performance against Brighton, but very inconsistent. If I had to pick 2 players, it's probably going to be Gibbs White and Xavi Simons. I'm the 4 free transfers guy. My team is Raya, Gabriel, Chow, Vandenberg, Van Dijk, Bruno Fernandes, Anderson, Wilson, Sarr, Rao, and Thiago. Anderson on the bench. Also have bench boost still to use apart from wildcard. Yeah, it's not a terrible team for this week, but you have a few players who might not even start, like Raul Jimenez and Sarr. You've obviously got clashes like Vandenberg against Bruno. Yeah, I would consider wildcarding now and bench boosting in 36, but it depends on how you structure your wildcard because you could also use it in 35. But ultimately, with those 2 boosters, use it within the next 3 game weeks. That's going to be my advice, especially if City double in 36. I think that goes without saying. I have the same 15 players as you, but going 1.3 million over budget. Yeah, that's why team value can be important to a certain extent, but not as much as in previous campaigns. I think we've seen a lot of examples this season of budget options outperforming the premiums, and that's why it's just not really something I recommend to people in terms of copying and stuff. Go for your own path, and sometimes going for the cheaper option results in more points, so it is what it is. Have 1.2 in the bank. Yeah, I don't really have much in general when it comes to FPL, which is a shame. In UCL Fantasy, I've got like 111 million. If only I had that for this game. But ultimately, like I said, it's not as important. If I want a goalkeeper for blank or is that double-digit haul, who should I buy? Henderson. Well, Henderson features this week will be against Liverpool away. He will likely double in 36, and he's got a high ceiling for a goalkeeper. He's actually third when it comes to points scored in that position. So, yeah, Henderson's a good shout. ¿Crees que Aston Villa vaya con nómina alterna? No, creo que Aston Villa va a jugar un equipo bastante fuerte, digo la verdad. Bignish says on a free hit, pick 2 in Dye, Gakpo and Xavi Simons. Have Solanke up front too. I would go for Ndai and Xavi Simons probably. Bournemouth hired Marco Rosa from Leipzig. Yeah, I saw the news, I think, maybe a week or two ago. I mean, he had a lot of, I said admirers over the last couple of years, but maybe some of his recent jobs haven't really favoured him as much. That's where his stocks have gone down a little bit. Would you go for Simons or Castellanos? I'm tempted by Castellanos, you know. I don't mind him as a punt against Everton at home, but I think in this case, I'm going to go for Xavi Simons. World Cup fantasy will be wild. Yeah, especially if what happened last year happens again, which I don't think will be the case, but never say never. Is it worth getting Brobby and Lefay? I'd stick to one, and Lefay is the preference there. In terms of budget forwards, I prefer Castellanos over Brobby, and there's also Solanke, Bowen, Thiago, Watkins, who are in my current squad. Alexander says free hit Pickford, Gabriel, Tarkovsky, Van Dijk, Bruno Fernandes, Cunha, Gakpo, Wilson, Gibbs White, Watkins, Thiago, with Hermanson, Michele, Mavropanos, and Osula on the bench. Okay, so looking good. You've got double Everton defence, which is interesting. You're going against Bowen and these players, which is fair enough. I'm not as convinced about Everton. I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet against West Ham, but maybe I'm wrong. You've got to back your gut on that, but ultimately that'd be one of the things I highlight against the free hit team. With the rest, not many reservations from my part. Hola Andrés, viendo tu equipo, ¿qué opinas si tener a dos jugadores de Liverpool, mejor mantener a Salah y traer tanto a Rodgers como Xavi Simons en vez de Szoboszlai? Si estaba pensando en eso, comprar a un atacante de Tottenham, puede ser Solanke o Xavi Simons en el lugar de Szoboszlai. Es una posibilidad para mi equipo y es una buena idea, en mi opinión. What about FPL Challenge this game week? I did go for that. I didn't do that well because I forgot to change Joao Pedro, who was my captain there. I think it would be good if they gave notifications on your player being benched or something, because ultimately I just forget to go on it. And I think this season, a lot of times, I've had players benched in FPL Challenge. Dango Alderete to start. Alderete. Solanke over Watkins on free hit. Not for me, but Solanke's a good option. Should I start Mavropanos or Dewsbury Hall? Dewsbury Hall. Nabin says my 5 mids, Bruno, Wilson, Szoboszlai, Gibbs White, Rice. Looks decent. Any transfer suggestion besides Salah? I don't mind Mbeumo or Cunha, to be fair. Apart from that, you're looking at Wilson, Rodgers. I think I'd lean towards Rodgers from the players I mentioned. Which one to sell out of Bowen and Thiago for Haaland next week? Bowen has slightly better fixtures. Thiago has infinitely better stats when it comes to goal scoring and XG, big chances, etc. Obviously, Bowen has the creativity on his side, but difficult one to say. I'd probably lean towards selling Thiago instead. Yeah, I think Bruno will break the assist record. A lot of set pieces, though. I mean, they don't count when it's Arsenal, so just using the same logic there. Is Dewsbury Hall a good shout? Yes, he's a good shout, but not my favourite. Thank you to Jazz for the super chat. No free hit. Okay, that's something new. Raya, Dubravka, Gabriel, Hall, Van Dijk, Maguire, Alderete, Bruno, Gibbs White, Shada, Wirtz, Rodgers, Thiago, Joao Pedro, Ekitike. Free transfers and 2 million in the bank. What are some good differential transfers? How would you plan ahead? I think what could help here actually is using the website fpl.team. So I'm not going to do this for everybody, by the way, but I think for this one, it could work. So let's go to fpl.team. So let's get rid of that. I mean, ultimately, I'm in a similar boat. Yeah, it's going to come up like I'm taking massive hits. That's not really the case, so I'll just bear that in mind. So Raya and Dubravka. Hall, Van Dijk, Alderete. Wait, Maguire was the other one. Okay. And then Bruno Fernandes. Gibbs, White, Sharda. Verts and Rogers. Yeah, not fully sold on Florian Wirtz, but maybe not a sell this week. And then up front, yeah, Bekatike has to go, obviously. So Thiago. Sure, Pedro, that's not ideal. Okay. And it's also about, I think, you want Erling Haaland for the future. So, yeah, maybe he free hitted last week, right? Yeah, I'm guessing that's what happened. Thank you, Punjabi, by the way. 127 points was fairly promising. I'm quite happy with that, to be fair. So, yeah, not going to complain too much, but yeah, there's a few things, obviously. Thank you, Kyle. Much appreciated. Just going to go through the super chat, of course, by Jazz. Turning in from mobile, can't see your team properly. Please describe. It's not great. I'll go for it soon. It's just right now I'm talking through another team and seeing what we can do to make some differential transfers and optimize this squad with no free hit. So, yeah, for this week, it's not terrible. You have a full 11 at least. That's the most important thing. But, yeah, Maguire's not a guaranteed starter. Free transfers. Okay, so I will do Ekitike to one of Bowen or Ollie Watkins. I'd be tempted by Watkins, to be fair. Albeit it's a bit more restrictive when it comes to budget. Then I would either bench Sharda or Maguire. I'm going to go for Maguire on the bench. Okay, so one transfer used this week. And then 35. Where you would still have free transfers at your disposal. Not too bad. Okay, so... yeah, bringing in Haaland is going to be a bit awkward. But I think what we could do here is Haaland in for Joao Pedro. To be fair, there's a case to sell Thiago instead, but he's facing West Ham at home. I would sell Florian Wirtz and go to a cheap midfielder. Cheaper midfielder like Cherky. But yeah, in terms of like budget, for example, I'm not sure how that would work. I mean, you say you got 2 million in the bank. Let's actually compare that to what I got. No, thank you. Let's undo that. So I've got 0.4. So you got 1.6 more than me. Okay. That helps a little bit. So Haaland, Wirtz, the Cherky, and I'd sell Van Dijk, I think. But then you'd have 3 million, so you wouldn't have enough to make these moves. So that's why instead of Watkins, as much as I want to recommend him, and he's a differential, I might have to go for someone a bit cheaper. So that could be Bowen or possibly Tati Castellanos, which would be even better. And Van Dijk to a 4 million defender. I mean, that could work. It could be Pascal Struijk or... I mean, ideally it'd be a Palace defender or just someone ready for double gaming 36, but you could do something like this. That's if your priority is to bring in Erling Haaland. But I think for this week, you don't need to do too much jazz. Maybe one free transfer, sell like a TK to one of Bowen, Watkins, or maybe someone even cheaper, like Castellanos, who I mentioned. It's just long term. I'm not that, I'd say, convinced about the Argentine, to be honest. He's more of just a 1 week punt. So let me know your thoughts and what you would be thinking about. But yeah, going into 36, for example, that's where you'd want to have 2 or 3 seat players, maybe one from Palace as well. And that's why things can be a bit complicated, if you will. But I think Wirtz and Van Dijk could be cash cows for you. And one of Thiago or Joao Pedro could make way for Haaland. Ultimately, if you want to go without Haaland for the rest of the season, that's your prerogative. But if you have the triple captaincy chip remaining, that'd be my recommendation to go for Erling Haaland and use it in 36, that's for sure. No, Ismail Assar's not injured. Welcome, Danny Ribeiro. Good to see you. Thoughts on Havertz and Disasi's differentials? I'd be more keen on Havertz, but I think Everton could score. Not too convinced about the pair of them simultaneously, but yeah, that'd be my sort of call on it. This poll is very close, by the way. Pedro Porro, 51%, and Van Dijk is 49%. Interesting. Yeah. Not as clear-cut as maybe it would have been earlier. Amin says Rove, Spodro, Mavropanos, Gabriel, Salah, Gakpo, Bruno, Cunha, Watkins, Solanke, Bowen. What do you think? Yeah, it's a decent squad. I'm seeing quite a few people mention either Diouf, Mavropanos, or even Disasi. I'm not convinced about a clean sheet against Everton, to be fair. But I do like your attack. I've got Thiago instead of Solanke, but that looks pretty good. And yeah, I was quite bullish on Cunha early in the week. I'm just not really feeling it with Gakpo, but you got to back your gut on that one because maybe I'm wrong. And he ends up hauling. It's just, even if he does return, I don't think it will be a big one. I think we're looking at 5 to 7 points, which ultimately I'd take from Szoboszlai, to be fair, but it's nothing really that... Yeah, I don't think Gakpo should be a priority for people. That's just the way I see it. Okay, let's put another poll here, since we've got quite a few votes here for Porro Van Dijk. So let's do Solanke versus Thiago. Let's put Solanke and Thiago. Woodman or Hermanson? I've gone for Woodman just because he's cheaper and it allows me to fund the other players. That's pretty much what it comes down to. There is a chance that Alisson starts and he is returning fairly soon, but Mamardashvili is still not quite ready yet, according to Arne Slot, so we can figure about him. Raya or Pedro? You asked this question earlier, I think. I said Raya. Thiago, not a captain for me, but he did score 2 goals against United earlier this season. I am Real Astro says, I only had 2 free transfers, planning to bring in Bowen and Rodgers for Semenyo and Calvert-Lewin. Should I -4 Timber to Van Dijk, or should I just transfer Rodgers and Bowen? Mamma mia. The thing is, you might want Semenyo back for double Gameweek 36. Maybe by that stage you can just bring in Cherki instead, or triple up on C in a different way. But yeah, I wouldn't do Timber to Van Dijk for -4, especially if you have a full starting 11 already. So it just depends on that context as well. But yeah, Timber still unavailable at the moment. I'd stick with Rodgers and Bowen, actually. In terms of fixtures between Forest, Spurs and West Ham, Forest have the most difficult. True. That is a good point. Yeah, the Pedro bench in Cook Me and Challenge was my captain. Still top 10k overall and 40th in my home country, but was 4th beforehand. Yeah, it's frustrating. And if he did play, I think he would have earned a penalty, or at least done something like that. Do you think the Premier League race winner this season will be decided in the last game? It's possible. It shouldn't be. You know, if Arsenal was serious, they would have done it by now. But yeah, it's been coming for a while. It might be over before then, and not for the team I want. But yeah, I'm going to say yes. Why not? Rodgers or Watkins? Watkins. Still got my bench boost and triple captain. Yeah, so what you could do here Going back to your team. No free hit. I wouldn't mind wildcarding now, even though you technically have a good foundation. It's not too shabby for 34, but yeah, no wildcard. Bench boost and triple captain. Okay, so what I would do is bench boost in 35, triple captain 36. I think that would be the play for you, Jas. I think that's the best way to approach the remainder of the season. And let me know what you think of the transfers I talked about when I went through your team here with this squad using FPL.team. I'd highly recommend you go to the website. You can just type in your team ID, and then it'll show you money in the bank and the amount of transfers, so it's accurate to your situation. So yeah, I'd definitely recommend that. So yeah, this was my team beforehand, but I don't have Xavi Simons at the moment. I've got Morgan Rogers instead, so still time to make a few late changes. Why are you backing West Ham? Am I really? I mean, I've got Bowen. Doesn't mean they're going to win the game. A player can still haul, especially an attacking player. And yeah, their team still don't win the game. But ultimately, I just think Everton will score a goal. So I'm not that bullish on having their defenders in the starting 11. I could be wrong about that. I really could. Obviously, David Moyes facing West Ham again. That should be interesting. But yeah, ultimately, I think with this one, Dewsbury Hall and Dye, they're decent options. Garner, but I'm not really fancying any defenders from either side in this game. Hi Dylan, I only have 2 free transfers planning to bring in Bowen. I cover that. Thank you very much. Mate, it doesn't matter how Arsenal don't win it in this case. It's not good enough, so I'm not going to be happy either way unless Arsenal get the job done. But even then, the performances need to improve, and I want Arsenal to go all the way in the Champions League. I think this was a great opportunity to win multiple trophies this year with the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, and that's why I don't sort of discount or discard any competition. Someone says Dylan, Gabriel, Van Dijk, Richards, Alderete, Bruno, Wilson, Sarr, Bowen. For a second, I thought you were talking about me as the goalkeeper. 2 free transfers, non-playing, Ekitike, Haaland, Senesi, Stack, Petrovic, Dubravka. Please suggest. Yeah, awkward because you have no goalkeeper, but is it worth a transfer? But what are your remaining chips? I mean, that would be quite handy, because if you had the free hit, for example, I'd probably recommend using it now, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, Ekitike should be sold. That's where Watkins can come in. If not, you can go for someone even cheaper, then spread the funds around and possibly take a hit in the process. But if you have the free hit or even wildcard, that could be well utilised this week for you. Do City and Chelsea Leeds get a double gimmick when FA Cup final is reached? No, so basically with Man City, in 36 they will double with the Palace. Yeah, either Palace or Bournemouth. It's probably going to be Crystal Palace. We're not going to get a double game. It could just be rescheduled into the same game week, pretty much. But yeah, it's a good question. But ultimately with double game weeks, we're not really getting as many as in the past. And that has been a thing now for the last year or two. Danny Ribeiro says, my free hit team, what do you think? Raya, Gabriel, Virgil, Borro, Fernandez, Cunha, Salah, Szoboszlai, Solanke, Bowen, Watkins, with Kinski, Renilo Mandava, Heaven, Dalman on the bench. Yeah, I've got something very similar. Ultimately, I've got Thiago over Solanke, but it's looking pretty good. Yeah, I'm liking it. There's not really any pick that I think, it's not looking too good. The bench is a bit weak, but so's mine. And ultimately, I would say you've got one decent bench option in Renildo, which is all you hopefully need. So yeah, I'm liking the look of it. And captain is probably going to be Fernandez for me, but if you want to go for something a bit different, I think Salah or Watkins could be quite intriguing. I only need a playing goalkeeper. Who should I go for between Woodman or Kinski? Kinski's a bit more secure. There's a chance that Alisson plays instead of Woodman, so that could be the simplest solution for you, really. But Liverpool are top of the clean sheet odds with 42%. Spurs are third, if that also helps you a little bit. Start Saliba or Mavropanos. Still Saliba for me. Gabriel captain, that's crazy. Well, I hope he hauls for you and for my sake. With Harry Maguire back to starting 11, United defend will be more strong. Yeah, it is Maguire we're talking about. He's not terrible, but he's not great either. Why are more people talking about Osula? Well, because he's facing Arsenal, who supposedly are great. unfortunately they haven't been recently. Cunha over Rice? Yes. I think for this week, I'd rather go for Cunha. Finally fixed, Raya, Hincapié, Van Dijk, Pedro Porro, Salah, Rice, Dewsbury Hall, Bruno Fernandes, Solanke, Watkins, Bowen. I don't think Hincapié is a bad choice for the free hit, but Calafiori is back in the squad. There is a chance he starts over Hincapié. And ultimately of Arsenal, yeah, I'd rather have Gabriel in that defensive line, but I'm guessing you did that to fund other moves, which I understand. My free hit is Raya, Pedro Porro, Gabriel, Mavropanos, Wilson, Bruno Fernandes, Xavi, Rodgers, Mohamed Salah, Bowen, Thiago Woodman, Colomwani, Alderete, Diouf. You could downgrade Colomwani to Tati Castellanos and then invest more money into the starting 11 if needed, if you want to go for that sort of thing. I'm personally not a big fan of Mavropanos, so I'd be quite keen on upgrading him. Maybe to Van Dijk, which you could do with the Colomwani to Castellanos money, which is one example. You could also go to Mane if you need extra funds, but yeah, that'd be one possible upgrade there. Hey Dylan, hope you're good. How likely is it for the Bournemouth City game to be moved from 37 to 36 to give Bournemouth a double? I think it's looking more likely now than it would have done a couple of weeks ago, but in terms of percentages, I still think City Palace is the more plausible one. I need to know before I transfer out Hill. Well, that's the thing. We might not know until Game Week 35, basically, until that sort of period next week. But yeah, I'm going to have a look and dig deep, and hopefully we can get more clarity in this situation soon. But yeah, I'm not sure about the exact percentages of the Bournemouth City game. Pick 2 for this game week, Wilson, Gibbs White, Rodgers and Dye, and Xavi Simons. I'm going to go for Rodgers and probably Wilson. Any thoughts on my free hit, says Matthias? Pickford, Alderete, Virgil. Yeah, once again, a lot of people going for either Everton or West Ham defensive coverage. I'm not a big fan of that sort of thing. I don't really like investing in that game defensively. I do like the attackers, especially Bowen and Tati Castellanos, but not really with the other players in general. With Lefay, decent budget midfielder, but there are other options you could consider there. I talked about Dewsbury Hall, for example. I'd be more keen on him. But I get the appeal of Lefay. It's just with that Sunderland-Nottingham Forest game, oddly enough, I think that's probably the more likely to yield a clean sheet or to be lower scoring overall. So I might be wrong about that as well. I think Sunderland at home is a good choice against Nottingham Forest. That's fair enough. That's why you've got Alderete in there as well. And yeah, if you have that sort of feeling, you've got to reflect that with your picks on the free hit. So makes a lot of sense from your side. But I think with Pickford, maybe Raya and Roafs would be decent alternatives to him. Thank you, Danny. Hello, can you recommend best strategy to use my bench boost triple captain, please? Well, I don't know your team, but I would say bench boost 35, triple captain 36 in many situations for those that have both boosters remaining. Yeah, agreed. I think Kinski. Wilson or Rice? I hope you're well too, Mark. This season, 81k so far. Really well played, and you can still push even higher. I'd probably go for Wilson over Rice this week. Any information about Xavi Simons? We don't have any information per se. There's no leak, but yeah, Xavi Simons should start. I'd be surprised if he didn't. Woodman is in my predicted lineup for Liverpool, but as I said earlier a few times, I think Alisson, well, there is a chance he's going to be back, which Arne Slot talked about in his press conference, so it's not a completely secure pick. Start Mavropanos or Porro? Porro. My free at team, Hermanson, Van Dijk, Porro, Cunha, Fernandes, Gibbs White, Salah, Bowen, Watkins, Thiago. Looking good. It's going to be similar sort of feedback. In my opinion, I'm not a big fan of West Ham or Everton defensive coverage this week, so I wouldn't go for Hermanson as your starting goalkeeper. But I think with the rest, not many arguments for any of them. I think they're all really good and up there with the very best options in their respective positions this week. Thank you, Mark. Eddie says, hi, Dylan. I've got 2 free transfers, only bench boost left. I don't have free hit. Who to get for Tavernier? 1 million to spend. I have Fernandes, Mbumo, Rodgers, and Dango. Wilson could be a good option for you. I think that would work in your situation. Thiago's on my top 10 Campsy list, but I wouldn't necessarily go for him over Fernandes, Salah, Watkins, and the other strikers I discussed. Also midfielders too. Thank you, Ayush. Much appreciated. What I'm going to do now is actually go through the screens one more time. We've got 43 minutes left until the deadline. And let's have a look at the poll. So Solanke is winning. Not by much, but 56% of the vote over Igor Thiago. And with the other one, Pedro Porro had 51% to Van Dijk's 49. So I'll end this one. Hi, Dylan, Xavi Simons or Gakpo? Xavi Simons for me, Gonzalo. Thank you as well, Eddie. Much appreciated. Let's now go to the FDR. Bournemouth, Chelsea, Burnley, Brighton and Brentford are in the bottom 5. And if we look at the top ranked teams, we've got Man City, Wolves, Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Sunderland, Man United and Spurs in the top 7. Bearing in mind, though, City will only have one double game week. The same goes for Palace, of course. 36 is more likely, but there is the possibility of a 37 double as well. With predicted points, Haaland is top with Gabriel, Fernandes, Salah and Guehi in the top 5, followed by O'Reilly, Thiago, Rice, Saliba and Antoine Semenyo. With price changes, I highlighted a lot of names earlier. Not all of these will happen, but Rodgers, Xavi Simons, Watkins, Pedro Porro, Cunha, Bowen, Solanke, Bruno Fernandes, Dewsbury Hall and Gibbs White are likely. We've also got Gabriel, Igor Jesus, Tarkovsky, Casemiro, Ndai, Lacroix, Gakpo, Brobbey, Isak, Mitchell, who could all rise. Even Salah and Nico Williams aren't too far behind. There aren't as many price fallers projected for tonight, but we could see Dango Ouattara, Chow, Rayan, Gordon, Angel Gomez, Iwobi, Mbumo, Shada, Vandenberg, Semenyo all go down alongside Senesi, Hall, Marino and Gravenberch. I did a stats comparison earlier of Watkins versus Bowen. They're both in my setup at the moment, but Watkins is definitely the more appealing for me over the next 3 game weeks, especially when you look at the fixture quality. I think an Aston Villa attacker against Fulham away, Tottenham at home and Burnley away looks really promising indeed, and Watkins has the form to back that up. When it comes to goal scoring, he is the leader there with 11 goals to Bowen's 8. Now, Bowen does have 4 more shots, but when it comes to shots on target, inside the box, XG and big chances, Watkins is comfortably ahead with triple the number of big chances compared to Bowen. But then with creativity, there is no debate here. Bowen has 11 big chance created to Watkins' 4 and 36 key passes, which is almost double the amount Watkins has created this season. And with the XA as well, a very big difference there as well in both of them. And Bowen has 10 assists fantasy-wise. So when it comes to FPL Challenge, or I should say FPL Team, I'll get to FPL Challenge very soon, I'd highly recommend using a website like this to visualize future game weeks and compare different chip strategies, and ultimately, a lot of us only have 1 or 2 chips remaining at this stage. The free is active for me right now. This is the 3rd consecutive week that I've used the booster. 35 will be different. I won't be using one, but the triple captain is the last resort for me, and that's where I'll use it when Man City have that double, which will likely be in Game Week 36, and Erling Haaland will be my triple captain unless something goes horribly wrong. So this is the free hit squad for Blank Gameweek 34, another structure which has Harry Wilson in here instead of Ollie Watkins, and it also means having Rodgers and Virgil van Dijk, which is a bit different compared to what I talked about before. And this is the wildcard team, so you can have this sort of structure, and then for 35 you roll, and for 36 you could have triple Palace and triple City for their potential double, of course, in 36, which looks pretty promising. You could also bench boost at this point, so if you have the wildcard and bench boost as well as the wildcard, my recommendation would be wildcard now, bench boost 35 and triple captain in 36. That'd be the way I'd approach it, but everyone's situation is different. So FPL Challenge, Roveson goal, Gabriel, Fernandes captain, Salah, Bowen and Watkins. This week it is called MVP, so players who collect the maximum bonus points earn 10 points rather than 3. And these are my scoreline predictions for the week. Sunderland 1, Nottingham Forest 1, Fulham 1, Aston Villa 2, Liverpool 2, Crystal Palace 2, West Ham 1, Everton 1, Wolves 1, Tottenham 2. I've gone for 1 clean sheet this week, and it's for Arsenal. I'm not so sure about that one. So a 2-0 win there for the Gunners. Man United 2, Brentford 1. And that is pretty much it. Only 7 games this week, with 6 teams blanking in 34. Those that obviously doubled, of course, last time out in 33. So Crystal Palace is the highlighted team weakness here. On the right-hand side, they concede a lot of chances, which could bode well for Mohamed Salah, who is a leading captaincy contender. But is he first? You're going to see that list again very shortly after the clean sheet odds, where Liverpool are now top with a 42% probability. Arsenal are just behind them with 40%. Tottenham Hotspur are third with Forest, Sunderland and West Ham in the top 6 Newcastle are joint bottom with 13%, down there in 14th. So these are going to be the top 10 captains, updated as well. I have made a few changes towards the very end of this list. So Harry Wilson is 10th there, which is maybe contentious to a certain extent, facing Aston Villa at home. I put Dominic Solanke up in 9th with Rodgers and Mbeumo, who replaces his teammate Matheus Cunha. There are some doubts about the Brazilian starting in 34. Igor Thiago is just outside the top 5, which comprises of Gabriel, Watkins, Bowen, Salah, and Bruno Fernandes, who is currently my captain. That was not a voice crack, by the way. That was just, well, I guess gases. Anyway, who gives a crap? Let's go to the predicted lineups. I just skimmed through Arsenal. We'll go back to them. And there you go. So I did highlight all of these players earlier, so I'm not going to read through all of them. But ultimately with Arsenal, the big news is that Saka and Calafiori are going to be involved tomorrow, confirmed by Arteta. Having said that, Jurriën Timber is still out. I think Havertz will start up front. And with Aston Villa, the main concerns will be at left centre-back and also on the left-hand side with Luca Dean. So maybe instead we'll see Maatsen and Mings over Torres and the Frenchman. But I think we'll see this starting 11 for the Villains right now. And for Brentford, I think the main concern is at left-back. Maybe Lewis Potter will make way, but it's quite a structured and stable starting 11 at this moment in time. For context, by the way, the numbers on the top right are my correct scoreline predictions. So for Crystal Palace, for example, I've got 320 correct out of a possible 352. And with Palace, Wharton is available now. I think he'll start. Obviously, Lacroix was a doubt going into 33, but he also got the nod, so he should reprise his role against Liverpool away. Next up is Everton, and Branthwaite is out for the rest of the season, and Beto has also been confirmed unavailable, so he would be replaced by Tierno Barry in the starting 11. Moving on to Fulham, I think the main concerns here would be up front with Rodrigo Muniz or Raul Jimenez, and just behind him, will it be King or Smith Rowe? I've gone for Josh King at the moment, and even in the midfield, of course, Iwobi is doubtful, but he is so important to this Fulham side. I've gone for Lukic and Sandon Berg, although Kearney did play fairly well in the recent match. We now have Liverpool, and this is where Woodman or Allison will be a debate this week, and Woodman is currently my backup goalkeeper. I might end up changing this anyway. It's not really a big deal for me, but Frimpong at right back could be replaced by Curtis Jones there, as we saw last time out. And in the midfield, I think this is quite stable. McAllister always has a chance of starting, but I think they'll go for a fairly offensive starting 11 with Gakpo on the left, Isak up front, and Florian Wirtz just behind him. But I think Salah's the key option this week. And for Man United, Bruno Fernandes is always instrumental. Brian Mbeumo's yellow flag, but I think he'll start with Cunha and Sesko. The alternative is for one of those wingers to be displaced by Amad Diallo. And defensively, Harry Maguire should return to the starting 11 to partner Aiden Heaven, who costs 3.7 million. With Newcastle United, Anthony Gordon and Livramento are out. The same goes for Joelinton, who is suspended. But Bruno Guimaraes is available. He made a cameo off the bench in a 2-1 loss against Bournemouth, and I think he'll start at the Emirates in Blank Gameweek 34, so I'm quite confident about his prospects there. And Nottingham Forest have a fairly fixed and stable starting 11. I think Ndoye will start on the left right now, with Hudson-Odoi still a doubt. I believe he might even be injured. I'm going to double check that as well for you, but Chris Wood up front to lead the line, and Jer Cunha to replace the injured Murillo in that defence. We have a couple of teams left, including Sunderland, and Alderete is fine, and he should partner Ballard in central defence with Mukiele and Renildo Mandava as the fullbacks, and the rest is what you would expect from Sunderland at this moment in time. With Tottenham Hotspur, I think Xavi Simons will start on the left-hand side, and Gallagher, Bentancur and Basuma will be the midfield trio. Solanke up front is appealing to a lot of free hitters right now. The same goes for Pedro Porro at that right-back position. With West Ham, this is also very stable. I don't want to jinx these teams, but ultimately they have been finding a bit of success with the starting 11s, and I think with West Ham you're looking at Bowen, Somerville and Tati Castellanos as the best options for Blank Gameweek 34. Now with Wolves, there are 2 yellow flag players in the starting 11 with Jose Sarr and Krejci. If they are available, I think they will start, but obviously Bentley is ready there to cover for Jose Sarr if needed, and I think Pedro Lima could start again at right wing back. So there you go, very extensive coverage there with predicted lineups. also predicted points and stuff like that. So be sure to drop a like, subscribe, and I've answered hundreds of questions at this point. And let's see if we can answer a few more before the deadline, which is in just over half an hour. I'd go for Szoboszlai over Gakpo. Yeah, exactly that, Lager. I prefer Szoboszlai. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening to the mic. Give me a second. Cheers for flagging that up. Give me a second and I think I'll have it sorted. Yeah, let me know if this works now. I think it was a cable issue, so thank you very much. But yeah, hopefully it hasn't been a factor for most of the stream, but yeah, make sure to let me know if possible. Thank you, Philip. What 6.5 million midfielder to bring in? Depends on the context. So for Blank Gameweek 34 only, I'd say Xavi Simons looks quite appealing. I think longer term, Harry Wilson would be fairly decent. Thank you as well to Lager for moderating the chat. I have both Watkins and Bowen. Yeah, same here. And I think my main question, as you can see in the poll, or the one that I posted recently, is Solanke versus Igor Thiago. Rice or Eze? I'd probably lean towards Eze there. I have Gibbs White, so I didn't really want Rofes. That's fair enough, and that's what I mean. It's important to be conscious about these clashes to prevent them from happening in the first place. Would you start Gakpo or Thiago this week? Thiago. Xavi or Wilson? Wilson. Mukiele in for Timber. Yeah, I think that's fairly decent. Liam Z says, I have a fully fit starting 11. I have no available players on the bench. 1 Gordon injury. 3 free transfers and wildcard 35. Should I roll or make a transfer to be safe? I think using 1 transfer wouldn't hurt you. And it could also bode well for either double Gameweek 36 or it can also just give you that sort of squad depth for a bench boost in 35, for example. But yeah, let me know which chips you have remaining. I mean, you're saying wildcard 35. So yeah, having as many free transfers for the period afterwards will be very useful to you, and it gives you more flexibility. You can be aggressive, so that could definitely work there. Thank you, Lager. Yeah, I don't think it should be muted now, but let me know. Yeah, thanks everyone for the feedback. Apologies for that. Sometimes the cables can be a bit weird. Let's see what else we've got. I have a fully fit starting 11. I have no available players on the bench. 1 Gordon injury. Yeah, sorry, I just covered that. Yeah, different question. When will the double Gameweek be announced? I think closer to the Gameweek 35 deadline, around that stage. There shouldn't be a big sort of gap between when the actual fixtures are rescheduled to and the announcement. I mean, ultimately, they want to have that sort of... They want to give the fans grace and a bit of a heads up. So ideally 2-3 weeks in advance. But yeah, it might be a bit of a different situation this time round. No, I don't think Gyökeres will start. As I mentioned in my predicted lineup section, I think it's going to be Kai Havertz. Is it worth taking a -4 to have a playing keeper, or should I play with 10 this week? Play with 10. You never know, Salah, but is he really the second best option? I just think in the last couple of games, even against PSG, he showed something, and a few goal contributions definitely help, of course, in the Premier League. But I just compare him to the rest of the pack, and I think he is second. Maybe not completely clear-cut, but Bruno Fernandes for me is definitely the standout. Long-term pick, Gakpo, Rice, Simons, Gibbs White. It's between Rice and Gibbs White for me, and I would lean towards Declan Rice a little bit. Would you choose Rodgers or Thiago on free hit? Probably Thiago. But that's a very close call because, as you saw in my Camsey list, they're literally like 1 spot behind each other, so very little separates the two. Alderete or Maguire? Alderete. Big bro. I haven't been called that in a while. You know, any news on Mbeumo? I think he'll play. He is yellow flag, but every United predicted lineup I've seen has him in there. That's why he's in my current predictions as well. And ultimately, there are more concerns about Cunha, who didn't train, I think, very recently, but I think both will start for Manchester United against Brentford. Kinski, Hincapié, Gyökeres, or Raya, Solanke. I'd go for Raya, Solanke. And once again, I don't think Gyökeres will start. I could be wrong. I've gone for Woodman to start, but it's not set in stone because Alisson is nearing a return. Mukiele and Rogers or Borro and Dewsbury Hall on a free hit. I would go for Mukiele and Rogers. Sell him Boomer or start and roll? Start and roll. It does depend on who you can sell him to, but unless it's Bruno Fernandes, I'm not really going to advocate for that sale in many situations. So I think the best thing to do is roll and start him. I think he will get the nod there. I'm going for Van Dijk in place of Mukiele. Looks fine. I mean, Liverpool are top of the clean sheet odds, so maybe I'm missing a trick by not having any of their defenders. Hi, Dylan. Good to see you. Rice or Eze? Eze for me. Rice did score in the Emirates fixture last season, a 1-0 win for Arsenal. It was kind of like a meaningless game for both teams, to be fair, at the time, or at least for Arsenal. But, yeah. I think Eze would be the one Arsenal attacker I'd lean towards if I had to pick. Likewise, John Paul, happy Friday. Cunha and Borro in for Semenyo and Rodon on a -4. I'm a bit apprehensive about this because Man City are doubling in 36, and long-term I prefer Semenyo over Cunha. And there are some doubts, even though I think he will start, about Cunha's starting berth. So I'd be a bit conscious about that one, and maybe I'd lean towards no. Best Timber replacement. I think either Van Dijk, Munoz, or... I mean, Gabriel's ultimately the ideal one, but I think a more attainable player would, probably be one of the other two. The reason why I say Munoz is because of 36, where Palace will likely double. Having said that, the double consists of Man City, which isn't particularly great. Morgan Gibbs-White in place of Salah. In my opinion, it's worth it this game week. I'm going to stick with Salah, which is quite restrictive from a funds perspective, but ultimately, I'm very confident about Salah in general. And he was in my free hit team in the first half of the season. He let me down. I'm hoping for a bit of a revenge there. Gibbs-White over Rogers, Szoboszlai. Possibly over Szoboszlai here, I think, but I'm also going for Mukiele at the moment in my starting 11, so I'm conscious of avoiding that clash. I think in your situation, it's probably going to be that. So display Szoboszlai for him. Musi says Timber and Gordon replacements for this game week. I will wildcard in 35. Already have Alderete, Van Dijk, Cash, Sarr, Bruno, Dango, Wilson, Bowen. Well, ideally I'd say Gabriel and maybe Wilson. No, you got Wilson. Maybe I'd say... What's your budget? Ideally I'd say Gabriel and maybe Szoboszlai or Xavi Simons. And you're wildcarding in 35 anyway. But, yeah, Pedro Porro could work as a one-week punt as well, to be fair. But I'd just be a bit conscious about doubling or tripling up on Spurs. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of activity around Tottenham, and it does seem a bit sudden and kind of crazy, but yeah. Ultimately, I talked about Xavi Simons and Pedro Porro yesterday in my team selection video as a sort of alternative strategy to fund the front three I currently have, but I've also found a way of doing so without having Xavi Simons, so only time will tell, but I think a triple up could be excessive. Mavropanos or Maguire? Mavropanos. Should I do a -4 to do Mati Cash to Pedro Porro? Long term, I have no chips left. I wouldn't take a hit for a Spurs defender, so I'm going to say no. I think Ismail Assar has a decent record against Liverpool. It's not as impressive as what he does against Aston Villa, but it's still pretty impressive. Don't fancy any Everton defence pick for Dewsbury Hall. Agreed. I am in the same boat as you, but it's possible that one of them returns. We all know how this game can be. Do you think Spurs players are safe to take on free hit? They are not safe. No. As you say, they haven't won a game since December, which is very telling. Who to start, Mukiele or Tarkowski? Mukiele. I'm thinking Cherki over Semenyo. Yes, that's something I talked about in my recent wildcard videos, even before 33. Hey Dylan, there is something wrong with my team. I can't afford my starting 11 and I'm top 10k and my free hit team is 1.6 million off my friend who is 600k. How's this happening? Well, I think that's not really a question of, oh, I'm a higher rank, I should have better squad value than someone else, because you could have someone in the millions who literally make early transfers and they build up team value, and they've got better squad value than someone who's ranked in the top 100. So, yeah, I don't think it's a glitch. I think it's just a case of they have more squad value than you. And a lot of people watching this video will have more than I do. I think my squad value is terrible, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, they probably have value tied up in a lot of these players. That's probably what's happening right now. I think I might go Van der Ven over Mavropanos on my wildcard. I mean, at your peril, because Tottenham defenders are quite difficult to back for 1 week, let alone long term. But Van der Ven's 4.4 million. It makes sense. He's got a high ceiling. If Spurs can get their act together, I think Van der Ven could be a decent pick, but I wouldn't have too much faith. Mukiele in for Timber. He has Nottingham Forest and Wolves next. From that perspective, it looks fine. I'd expect 1 clean sheet for Sunderland there, but it's not guaranteed. Start Rice or Wilson. Wilson. What's a good cheaper mid than Rodgers? Well, Szoboszlai, Xavi Simons. I don't think they're better than Rodgers necessarily, but yeah, I think they could do the job for you. Would you do Mbuma to Rice? No. I'd keep Mbuma, at least for this week. Chow and Xavi or Borro and Dango? I think I'd go for Chow and Xavi Simons. No, I think this week Borro and Dango, but it depends. Is this for 34 only or long term? Good to see you, Ignacio. I'd pick Wilson over Xavi Simons. Yeah, I don't really fancy them too much. I like their fixtures in general, so that's why on the wild card I was actually considering having 1 or 2 Everton players for the video I made. But I just think for this game specifically, I'm backing a draw, 1-1. But I ultimately think both teams will score. Pickford instead of Raya? Yeah, true. Arsenal have been quite poor in the league recently, since February, I'd say. Yeah, I'm not completely against that. Something I'm considering is actually Ropes over Raya. So, yeah, I'm not really completely sold on the Arsenal double or triple up. So Pickford could work for sure, but that's more so for the last 5 game weeks of the season instead of just for 34 only. I still think Arsenal have a better chance of a clean sheet than Everton this week. Yeah, Gibbs White is decent, but I'm not going to go for him, I think. Especially if I go for Ropes in goal or Mukiele to start. Saka could be considered on the wild card in 35, but it depends on how he does in 34, and ultimately he's been getting injured quite a lot recently, so it's a shame. But with Saka, it's been a long-standing issue now with his injuries. Rodgers and Mukiele or Dewsbury and Borro for the free hit. Rodgers and Mukiele. Both duos are good, though. Welcome, Black Shadow. Rate my wild card. I wouldn't go for Woodman as a wildcard goalkeeper because ultimately Alisson's back very soon. Martinez, I'm not so sure because you've got Rofes, who has good fixtures for the next 2, decent for the rest of the season. Raya, Pickford, Henderson as well for the double in 36 if Palace get that. So I'd be a bit careful about some of this because, yeah, you've got double Villa defence. I'd definitely sell one of them for a Palace option if possible. Gabriel's fine. Mukiele looks good. I talked about Strauch and O'Reilly in my wildcard video. Yeah, looks solid overall, but I think the main concerns are with your goalkeepers and defence. I'd probably change that up a little bit. If I go for Eze over Rice, should I go for Szoboszlai over Gibbs White as a balancing act? When I talked about Eze over Rice, that's just for Gameweek 34. I think long-term Rice is still the better pick, more consistent. But yeah, I think Szoboszlai over Gibbs White is not a bad shout. I just think for Blank Gameweek 34, the higher ceiling is still with the Nottingham Forest talisman. 5 free transfers, no free hit or wild card. Who to bring in? I have no goalkeeper. Already have Van Dijk, Gabriel, Bruno, Szoboszlai, Haaland, and Mbeumo. Oof, yeah, at least you got 5 free transfers. But I would probably bring in Watkins if you can. At least one of him or Bowen, maybe even both. And I think in the midfield, it's a bit more difficult because some of the more appealing options are just for 1 week only. But Gibbs White could be decent for you. Morgan Rogers, I'd go for at least 2 of those 4 players that I mentioned. I think that would work fairly well. You don't need to use all 5 free transfers. Maybe just stick with the 7 or 8, starting in 34, possibly 9. And Bob's your uncle. Thank you, Keith. All the best to you as well. Rice or Gibbs White and Solanke or Igor Thiago? Well, I've currently got Igor Thiago, but that's something I might change from now until the deadline. I think Gibbs White over Rice this week. I can just afford Solanke and Xavi in for Enzo and Raul. Will wildcard 35 and still keep 2 free transfers. Looks good. That's a good position to be in for me. Just got here. Thoughts on Eze? I'm not a big fan of any Arsenal attacker, but he's the one I'm most open to, if you will. Start Borro or Thiago? Thiago. Free hit Gibbs White or Rogers, says Alexander. Rogers. Play Chow and roll or transfer to Borro? I'd transfer to Borro. Nobody got faith in Cunha to start. Well, I do, technically. He's in my predicted lineup. Welcome, Awali. I'd say Tati Castellanos is the best 6.5 million forward or under. Better was in great form, but he's out for Gameweek 34. I've got Woodman on the free hit, but there's a chance Allison starts. I'd pick Watkins over Thiago this week. Kerwin says, hey Dylan, I'll need your help using free hit this week. Start my wildcard, triple captain, and bench boost. Well, I talked about this in my free hit video a few days ago, and I went through the free hit a few times in this stream as well. This is my current squad on the free hit. I might make a few changes to be fair, but ultimately a lot of it is sort of locked in, and it's just about finalizing the details. In terms of your other boosters, I would probably wildcard. It's a bit awkward, but probably wildcard 35, triple captain 36, and bench boost 37, which isn't ideal. I would rather bench boost as early as possible, really, at this stage. Good luck to all. Yes, thank you very much, Keith. I actually read it the way you intended anyway. I didn't even realize that. I'm tempted to gamble captain on Raya. I would not do that, but play FPL the way you want to. Play Dango or Munoz. Dango. Gakpo and Ndai or Szoboszlai and Xavi Simons. I'd go for the second duo. Szoboszlai and Xavi Simons. Free hit Watkins or Solanke. I prefer Watkins personally. Hi Dylan, Cody Gakpo or Xavi Simons. Xavi Simons. Okay, so I've answered a lot of questions, as you can tell. I've basically gone through every single one of them. Drop a like, subscribe, as we're closing in on new goals, like 39,000 subscribers on YouTube. So yeah, right now we're under 100 away from the next goal. Hopefully we can reach that within the next few weeks before the end of the season. And do you want me to cover World Cup fantasy content like I did a few years ago for Qatar, and also Club World Cup fantasy last summer, which was a blast. I even did a deadline stream until midnight. We had that early deadline, which was absolute banter. If you were there, you know the legendary moments it produced. But yeah, that's where we could feasibly get to 40k subscribers as well after covering the World Cup. So I'm open to suggestions and to improve the content as well going into next season for FPL and UCL Fantasy. Thank you to those that have watched the content for the past 6 years. I mean, I've been doing it for a while now, and it's always good talking to you. But I'm going to start locking in my squad. And that's what the plan is now for the next few minutes. We've got just over 15 to go until the deadline. Okay, so let's do some more polls as well. Haribo says, do you think Somerville or Morgan Gibbs White will score more points this week? I'm going to lean towards Somerville. Gibbs White was originally my top 10 list, but I did remove him from it. That's why I had a bit of a hesitation there, but I'm going to lean towards Somerville. I think that game could be high scoring between Everton and West Ham, but I've currently gone for a 1-1 there. Need to bench one to get a third striker on? Yeah, definitely. Even though with Havertz, you can never really trust him, but I think that looks pretty decent. Well, Declan Rice's output has dropped dramatically. That's why Rice is not in the team, and I've already got 2 Arsenal players, which is arguably already enough. Yeah, Timber's injured still. He's not going to be in the squad. That was confirmed by Arteta. And either way, Hincapié is not really competing with Timber. They play on opposite flanks. So Hincapié's main competition is Calafiori, who is in the squad, whilst Ben White and Mosquera are competing for the right-back spot in Timber's absence. My free hit team is Roves, Virgil, Borro, Mukiele, Mavropanos, Salah, Bruno, Xavi, Watkins, Bowen and Solanke. The glaring elephant in the room is no Arsenal, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. Well, I don't blame you. Newcastle are out of form, but so are Arsenal. And I think Bruno Guimaraes makes a massive difference. So that game could be very tough for the Gunners, and ultimately there's a lot of pressure on them, just like there is on Tottenham. And it's a different type of pressure. With Arsenal, they win their games, they probably win the league. With Tottenham, they're fighting for survival, and I think that's more of a negative pressure, and it's probably a bit tougher to deal with, you could say. But ultimately, yeah, it's a good squad in general. I'm not a big fan of West Ham or Everton defenders, so I'm going to flag Mavropanos as a potential doubt for me, but ultimately the rest are looking pretty solid for me. Yeah, Cunha was someone I was talking about quite a lot earlier in the week, but there are some different predicted lineups that have maybe Amad Diallo starting instead, for example, and I wouldn't be that surprised if that happened. But I personally have Cunha in the predicted lineup. Would you play Gakpo or Wirtz? Probably Wirtz. There's not much in it. Thank you, Awali. Much appreciated. Nicholas Ander says, Palmer and Timber to Salah and Heaven. 11 starters if Mbumo starts. Free transfers will wildcard in 35. Yes, looks good. Ultimately with Heaven, yeah, it's just to fund the Salah move, which is fair enough. United were originally in the top 4 for the clean sheet odds, but they're now 7th or 8th, I think. Rofs or Hermanson? Rofs. Xavi, Solanke or neither? In in isolation, I'd say Solanke, but it depends on the context. So if you don't go for Xavi Simons, which midfielder do you go for? And vice versa with Solanke. If you don't go for him, which forward do you actually have in your team? So that also plays a part. But in isolation, I think Solanke is the better pick. Thank you very much, Awali. Of course, World Cup is a 4-year tournament. It will be very rare to see any World Cup fantasy. The next one in 2030. Thanks for reminding me of the age. Yes, that is true. Oh my god, time flies. Rank Cunha, Rice, and Szoboszlai. For this week, I would say Cunha first, Szoboszlai second, Rice third. Overall, that'd be different. But for this week specifically, that'd be the ranking. I prefer Watkins over Solanke, which I mentioned a few times earlier. What's your best 9 million 2 goalkeepers? Rofs and either Kinski, Woodman, or Hermanson. Raya, Van Dijk, or Woodman, Gabriel? Well, depends. If you're starting them, then I'd say Raya and Van Dijk. Arsenal need goals. Why is no other Arsenal players? Well, because they're struggling to score goals and there's more pressure on them, and other teams will just sit back against them. So it's also a question of the goals being spread around the Arsenal team. So is there someone who sort of stands out, like Bruno Fernandes for United, who you know is going to get goals and assists and create chances every game? Not really with the Arsenal team, but if you want to go there, be my guest. I hope Arsenal win big and win the league, but I'm also quite realistic about where they're at right now. Mukiele, Rogers, Wilson, bench 1. I would bench Mukiele. Thank you very much, Keith. Who would you bench? Gibbs, White, and Dye or Watkins? I would bench Gibbs. Ooh. It's between him and Ndiaye. I'd definitely start Watkins. He should not be in this conversation, in my opinion. But I think with the other two, I'm going to stick with Ndiaye on the bench, just about. There's not much between him, Gibbs White, and Somerville, for example. So very fine margins between the three. And it can go either way. Never say never. Mavropanos has scored quite a few goals recently, but I'm going to say quite low. Watkins, Bowen, Solanke. Looks good. That might be my front three in the end. I know a lot of people are looking at Solanke right now. I'm starting Tarkowski, Mukiele, and Macro over Van Dijk and Gabriel. Very low on rank, so I'm going differential. All the best there. And yeah, Mavropanos, he's getting quite a lot of interest as well, actually, which is surprising. But yeah, he scored a few goals over the last couple of game weeks, and people are turning their heads there. I'm just not really a big fan of either Everton or West Ham defensively, if I'm being honest, but you're going for the differential play, which I understand. Technically speaking, Tarkowski is higher owned than Mavropanos, that's what I would say, but hopefully it works for you. Start three of Gabriel, Chow, Van Dijk, Vandenberg, and Anderson. I would start Gabriel, Van Dijk, and probably Vandenberg. I have no other Arsenal players, but do have Bruno Fernandes clashing with Vandenberg. Yeah, I get that. And that's the three I would go for. Thank you, Aranya. Well, I just don't really trust Xavi Simons or Tottenham. And once again, in my team selection, I talked about Xavi Simons and the possibility of going for Solanke and some different Spurs attackers. But yeah, Rodgers is definitely the more reliable FPL pick than Xavi Simons. So I don't think it's like an alien pick or something completely out of character or something that is ridiculous. I think it makes sense. It might be too safe or logical. But look, there are possible changes I'm going to make. And actually, your question is going to be the next poll, which is going to be Xavi Simons versus Rodgers. I'd go for Solanke there over Dewsbury Hall. Aston Villa or Fulham, which team is in better attacking form overall? Aston Villa. I did go for my scoreline predictions a few times earlier, but for that one, I went for 2-1 Aston Villa. I would start Watkins over Wilson. Exactly that, Awale. Lock in your teams. We've only got 8 minutes left now. Watkins, Bowen, Solanke, pick 2. Watkins and Bowen. Solanke could make it into my team, but it's kind of a close one. Rodgers is so much better. Well, yeah, but obviously Xavi Simons has the better fixture. I get why it's a debate. Start Wilson or Watkins? I would start Watkins. I just covered that, mate. Imagine Wolves beat Spurs. Inject it. Why not? What do you think of this for a free hit? I mean, there's not much wrong with it. I mean, you've gone for something a little bit different with the triple up in Arsenal defence. I'm going for 2 at the moment, and ultimately Newcastle can score, but Arsenal are always heavily backed as one of the favourites to keep a clean sheet, so it's a good decision. It's logical. I like it. No clashes as well. I think that could work very well. And obviously you got Solanke in there. I prefer Watkins, but it's also a question of budget. What I might do, though, there might be a late change here. Instead of Rodgers to Xavi Simons, I might do Thiago to Solanke. That's the only thing I'm considering, but ultimately that's still a bit hit or miss. Okay, so let's get the likes up. We're very close to 100. Let's try to push that on towards even bigger numbers. The same goes for subscribers as well. Yeah, for this week, I'd go for Gibbs White, mate. As a Spurs fan, I'm really not keen on any of our players, even if it's against Wolves. I get it. And I have a similar sensation with Arsenal as well. Yeah, sometimes it gets like that. Eze or Cunha? Cunha. Mukiele or Mavropanos, play 1. Mukiele. Xavi Simons or Wilson for free hit? Wilson. Solanke or Thiago? I'm going for Thiago at the moment. But, yeah, I put a poll out earlier to see what the masses thought, and Solanke was the slight victor, if you will. And for this one, Xavi Simons is winning. There's a lot of love, or at least maybe a promise and potential with the Tottenham players. But we've literally got 5 minutes left until that deadline. Just having a look here. I don't think there's going to be anything on Twitter, but there you go. Okay, so yeah, there's actually an update from De Serbi that just went before I went live. So yeah, Doggy has a muscular problem. So yeah, Jed Spence will start, in my opinion. So yeah, I'll make that change to the predicted lineup as well. Okay, so yeah. We're very close now to the deadline. Rice or Havertz? Probably Rice. No, I don't think Cunha's injured. He's fine. He's in my predicted lineup for a reason. Bowen or Xavi captain? Bowen. I wouldn't captain Xavi Simons or any Tottenham player personally, but if you want to go there, play FPL the way you want to, but just not for me, mate. Okay, so Xavi Simons is winning this poll over Rodgers, and I still might not go for him in the end. The one I might consider actually is having both Xavi Simons and Rodgers, which is something a little bit different. So I could go for this, and I wouldn't be too far off from having Van Dijk. So yeah, let's see if I can somehow muster something a little bit different. Yeah, that's not really... Maybe I could do this, actually. That's not too bad. I might do this and diversify my defense a little bit. Only one Arsenal defender, which is maybe a bit mad, but that would mean Roves, Gabriel, Porro and Van Dijk. And then Rodgers, Salah, Xavi Simons, Fernandes, Watkins, Thiago, Bowen. It's decent. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat if you like those moves, but I'm considering this. Cunha over Xavi and Rodgers. I would have said this early in the week, but at the moment, probably not. I'm going for Rodgers, and I think there's even space for Xavi Simons to make a late introduction into my team. And then I'll have 2 Tottenham players in the starting 11. But yeah, it's not a bad shout. Please, could everyone watching hit the like and sub, says Keith, who's been a member for 4 months. Much appreciated, as always, and thanks for tuning in once more. And hopefully you'll stay tuned for the UCL Fantasy and FPL streams from now until the end of the season. And yeah, maybe World Cup fantasy content if people are interested. Rice, Eze, Rodgers or Gibbs-White. I think that this week it's going to be Rodgers for me. Okay, so less than 2 minutes left. What could possibly go wrong? Quite a lot, to be fair. Quite a lot. Yeah, I'm going to go for this then, I think. Doesn't look too bad. All right, let's go for it. No double Arsenal defense yet, but I don't want to jinx them anyway. So let's go for Roves, Van Dijk, Porro, Gabriel, Fernandes, Salah, Xavi Simons, and Rodgers with Thiago, Watkins, and Bowen. So that means I've got 1 offensive double up in Aston Villa. The rest is quite balanced in the attack. And even my defensive line is also hedging my bets a little bit. If Arsenal do keep a clean sheet, that actually won't be good for me because a lot of people will go for 2 or 3 Arsenal defenders. But I've gone for this instead. So let me know your thoughts in the live chat. And I've got Kinski, Reinildo, Heaven, and Dauman on my bench. Start in Boomer or Brobby in Boomer. I'd definitely start in Boomer against his former club, and I'm personally backing him to start and do fairly well there. So yeah, I'm quite confident in Brian in Boomer. I think with Brobby, it'll be a low-scoring game, and if that's the case, I could benefit from that with Roves as my goalkeeper. It's actually the first time I've had Roves in FPL all season. So we'll see how he does. But it's not too bad. Ultimately, I went for 2-2 in the Liverpool Palace game, so based on my scoreline predictions, there might be some inconsistencies here when it comes to my defender selections in particular, but yeah, I think this will be my final team then. So, pretty much done. Bruno captain, Salah vice, and everything is sorted. So there you go. The deadline's passed, and we'll see how this goes in the end. It's a little bit different, I'd say. Maybe people will disagree, but yeah. I've got a few double ups in general. Offensively, only the 1. And in that defense, none at all. I've gone away from the double Arsenal. So for FPL Challenge, I've also got Roves in goal with Gabriel, Fernandes captain, Salah, Bowen and Watkins. All of them are in my free hit squad. So yeah, I'm hoping they perform for both my FPL Challenge and FPL sake. So that would be the dream. And I'll show you my scoreline predictions as well. Just for those that were asking earlier, I did show them, but just for the new viewers, as 2. Sunderland 1, Nottingham Forest 1, Fulham 1, Aston Villa 2, Liverpool 2, Crystal Palace 2, West Ham 1, Everton 1, Wolves 1, Tottenham 2, Arsenal 2, Newcastle 0, and Man United 2, Brentford 1. Yeah, we're locked in. Exactly that. Thank you to Awali and also to Punjabi for moderating the chat. And John Green, thank you very much. Thanks, Dylan. As always, hit the likes, guys. Yes, it costs nothing and it goes a long way to supporting the channel. Join my Discord server. The links are in the description for Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, you name it. You can also become a patron or channel member by clicking the join button on YouTube or going to patreon.com/FPL Dylan. Game over. Yes. Hopefully it's game over in a good way. Arsenal go top of the league and then just stop the count and end the season there. I'll be a happy man. All the best, guys, and Dylan too. To you as well, Awali. And always a pleasure seeing you in the live chat and also for keeping things rolling in the live chat in general. So that's always much appreciated. And thanks to everyone who has dropped by. A big up to the super chatters, the patrons, members, and all that good stuff. The Sunderland Nottingham Forest lineups will be out fairly soon, and that's the only game on the Friday. The rest will take place on the Saturday tomorrow. So with UCL Fantasy, the plan is to do a best team video. That will be for matchday 15, the first leg of the semi-finals. And by this stage, the wildcard and limitless are basically interchangeable, so there won't be any differences really. You could argue that some are one matchday punts and others are a bit more long-term, if you will, but yeah, I think it's better to do it condensed into one podcast. And with the team selection, that's always going to be a factor for the Champions League and FPL, so you'll see that on Monday too. And next Tuesday, I'll be going live once more for the Matchday 15 deadline stream and locking in my 5 final free transfers there. With FPL as well, the plan is to do a transfer tips, the best wildcard squad, and my team selection in preparation for Gameweek 35. And there will also be a deadline stream, of course, very soon. But thanks to everyone for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, then like this video. Also subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you're always up to date on my content for both FPL and UCL Fantasy, which I've covered now for the past 6 years. Time definitely flies. And as I said before, there are many links in the description, so be sure to check all of that out. And thanks to those that have done so already. Let's grow to new numbers, of course. We're closing in on 39,000 subscribers on the platform. And yeah, I have to say, there's a lot more goals to, many more goals to achieve in the future, and that will be done on this channel. But enjoy the football as always. Let's get the green arrows, win our mini leagues, and end this season as strongly as possible.